Chapter 1874. And Lin traveled to Earth with the ball that Bai Ling had given him. He passed through the spatial gate between the two worlds and was greeted by the sight of the adorable rabbit maiden. The rabbit maiden excitedly told Lin about how hard she had fought and how she had shed tears and blood to protect Earth. Xiao Fu and Little Fatty listened on without daring to say anything. What about the heavenly mind god crushing the rabbit maiden, tearing off her flesh and eating it, causing the rabbit maiden to have a mental breakdown and her consciousness to shatter? Are you sure you're not telling the exact opposite story? In the end, the rabbit maiden fought with all her might to protect the entire human race, and only then was she able to turn the tables and narrowly defeat the heavenly mind god. And Lin looked at the rabbit maiden, who appeared to be in high spirits and had flawless skin. She didn't look like she had been fighting for her life at all. He immediately realized that this *TCH was just trying to scam another meal out of him. Hell, woman, you told me I'd only need 2 meals. I'm giving you 3 meals, but you're asking for 4? And Lin smiled and didn't say anything. No matter how much the rabbit maiden grumbled, he refused to add more food. Clang, clang, clang. And Lin cooked for the rabbit maiden in space. In order to cook in a zero-gravity environment, the frying pan had to be imbued with gravity to make cooking more convenient. And Lin used his abyssal gravity to quickly cook. The rabbit maiden drooled at the sight of the food in the frying pan. Not only her, but even Xiao Fu and Xiao Pang, who could feed themselves by devouring the power of stars, were also very envious and wanted to have a taste. But who was the rabbit maiden? How could he possibly share the soup with Xiao Fu and Little Fatty? Even the soup from the frying pan was licked clean by him instead of being licked by Xiao Fu and Little Fatty. After taking care of the rabbit maiden, and Lin returned to Earth to visit his old friends. The little ball that Bai Ling had given him flew into the sky and merged into heaven and earth. Master and Lin, remember to summon me when you're about to go back, and I'll reveal myself to go back with you. A mechanical voice sounded from heaven and earth. And Lin nodded with a smile. Do your best. Bai Ling had once told him that she was going to mend the heavens to make up for the mistakes the Purple Star Civilization had made. And Lin didn't know how her progress was. He didn't ask, but now that he thought about it, he felt that it was time to ask about her progress. Once the heavenly sea god descended, the situation would definitely change drastically. When that time came, time would be the most important factor. He didn't know if Bai Ling had enough time to prepare. After Lin returned, he did not inform his family and friends immediately. He wanted to see what the Earth would be like without him. On the Huatai Resistance Heavenly Human Tribe Summit Forum, the whole world was watching this meeting, and Ming Chuan wore a suit of formal attire and stood on the platform, giving a speech on the unique characteristics of the Heavenly Human Tribe in front of all of the generals and powerful cultivators present. He was a respected representative of the cultivators on Earth and the object of worship and envy from many cultivators on Earth. At this moment, he was dazzling and influential on the international stage. His every move could cause a huge stir in the world. Dad is so handsome, and he's so confident. Even though he is one of the few beings who knows just how terrifying the human enemy is, he is still charging forward like a fearless warrior, constantly boosting the morale of the people on Earth. And Lin stood right beside Ming Chuan, but no one could see him. The higher-ups on Earth only knew that the Heavenly Human Tribe was at the Heaven Pioneer stage. As for the divine Heaven stage, heavenly humans, the paramount heavenly gods, those were existences that were completely unfathomable to them. Knowing about them would do them no good. If they knew that there were even more powerful beings out there that could destroy the entire Earth in the blink of an eye, would they still be able to muster up the courage to fight? If they didn't know about the Heavenly Human Tribe, they would at least be able to hold onto some hope and motivation. If they knew everything, then their morale would definitely plummet to the freezing point. And Lin recalled back to when Ming Chuan had asked him just how powerful the Heavenly Human Tribe was, and he had told his father the full story. His father's expression of shock and horror had been etched on his face when Ming Chuan had asked him just how powerful the Heavenly Human Tribe was. However, Ming Chuan soon calmed down again, and Lin asked him why he wasn't scared anymore. to which his reply was, "What's there to be scared of? Even if the sky falls down, the taller ones will be there to hold it up. There's only one thing we can do now, and that's to try and survive." And Mingchuan turned to Enlin with a serious expression. "Son, you have to try and survive as well. Don't push yourself too hard. There's so many gods on the Tai Chu continent, so don't always be at the forefront. Even if the sky falls down, you have to hide. Don't get smashed by it." These words were still echoing in his ears. A father's concern for his son was always so simple. And Lin sighed with emotion. "Dad, you might not believe this, but the sky has fallen. I've already become one of the tallest people in the world." He looked at the high-spirited and Mingchuan on the stage, and a faint smile appeared on his face as he made the connection between Mingchuan and his father. And Lin's body gradually disappeared on the spot, and Mingchuan was still in the middle of his eloquent speech when he suddenly faltered. He looked around with a confused expression, feeling as if something was very familiar. It came, then it left. All of the cultivators and high-ranking military officials below the stage were perplexed. They were just about to reach the climax. Why did he suddenly stop? Could it be that Senior and Mingchuan was stuck at the climax of his speech? And Lin turned to look at his old friends. The legal lowly, Tian Lingling, was wearing a dress that revealed her snowy white arms and slender calves. She looked very refreshing, but she was currently meditating on the summit of a snowy mountain in the Himalayas. Whoosh! She flipped her hand over and tossed a dart, which tore through the air before stabbing into a mountain, upon which it fell silent. Tian Lingling heaved a sigh of relief. Boom! The mountain suddenly exploded. The sturdy mountain rocks exploded into countless fragments that flew through the air. An entire mountain had been obliterated by Tian Lingling's dart. She hadn't thrown a dart, she had thrown a bomb. Is this little girl studying a spell technique? How diligent, but what a weird spell technique. No wonder she chose such a secluded place. And Lin couldn't help but grumble. And Lin was quite relieved to see this young woman diligently cultivating. He silently buried a set of low-rank immortal tools related to darts within a mountain. Tian Lingling continued to practice her darts, and she tossed them out in a calm and collected manner. The darts pierced into the mountain before exploding. Boom! A resounding boom erupted. All of a sudden, a dazzling immortal light erupted in all directions. Tian Lingling's brain finally shut down upon seeing this. Her large, almond-shaped eyes widened as she stared intently at the scenes unfolding before her eyes. Holy F***CK. I've finally had a miraculous encounter. Ah! Tian Lingling screeched like a groundhog as her eyes glowed with a green light as she pounced toward the darts. Immortal rank treasures. The legendary immortal rank treasures. My God. Thank you, Papa. Thank you for everything. Tian Lingling hugged the immortal rank darts with tears streaming down her face as she expressed her gratitude. And Lin stood beside the lowly, who was about to faint from excitement, and he felt a sense of comfort as he listened to her thank her papa. A benevolent, fatherly smile appeared on his face as he slowly disappeared from the spot. Chapter 1875. And Lin arrived at Dongfang Shui's concert. She had been singing a lot of inspirational songs recently, and she had become a vibrant young woman. And Lin wasn't quite used to this at first. Why had she become a vibrant young woman? However, after listening to the concert, he was surprised to find that Dongfang Shui's singing style was quite endearing. Her voice was extremely sweet, and it was filled with hope and determination, giving listeners the motivation to improve themselves. Even if it was her, she was also doing her best to try her best. Flowers of hope blossomed in the midst of despair were always so beautiful. After listening to the concert, and Lin went to see the Savior research a technological magic tool. The Savior was one of the founding members of the Federation who advocated for combining the power of cultivators with the power of technology in order to create a new cultivation system. The powerful physical constitution and consciousness of cultivators allowed them to easily control all types of difficult equipment, and the combination of vital energy and particle energy could produce a higher level of power. Hence, a good technological magic tool could drastically enhance a cultivator's combat prowess. All cultivators below the spirit nurturing stage had donned special technological cultivation armor that enhanced their attack, defense, and regenerative abilities. There are even some spirit nurturing stage cultivators who could fly through the air with a high-energy particle sword in their left hand and a vital energy sword in their right. For some reason, Enlin suddenly thought of the divine mirror world as he looked at the flourishing technological cultivation civilization. As far as he knew, the technological cultivation civilization in the divine mirror world had become even more prosperous. High-level artificial intelligence had already developed to the point where it had developed into a high-dimensional particle energy civilization. It had mastered the power of space and could equip return of void stage mighty figures with technological equipment. Little Na has been in seclusion for so long. I wonder what has happened in the divine mirror world. And Lin was a little concerned about the adorable and clingy little fairy. But she said it's a good thing, so it should be fine. And Lin secretly visited his family and friends on Earth. He met almost everyone he knew, but he didn't reveal his face. For some reason, he was enjoying this kind of reunion. He even went to see Ing Luoqing. This prodigy of the witch tribe still had a hideous room. However, it wasn't that she was unable to extricate herself from Enlin. Instead, she used her sorrow and disappointment as motivation to cultivate diligently in an attempt to break through the soul formation pinnacle stage and enter the return to void stage. And Lin admired this kind of spirit of diligently cultivating. After silently destroying his inflatable real person doll, he left gracefully, hiding his achievements and fame. He didn't know that the attack that followed would actually make a girl who looked cold on the outside, but had a fiery heart gurgling in the middle of the night like a river flowing eastward in spring. 5 days passed quickly, and Lin quickly fulfilled his promise and cooked 5 meals for the rabbit maiden in a row. The rabbit maiden looked as if she were on the brink of death. And Lin looked at the contented rabbit before looking at the blue planet in the distance. He then bade farewell before returning to the 4-9 immortal sect to continue his life of idleness. The rabbit maiden had successfully passed the trial of the heavenly gods. So Enlin was very reassured that she would be guarding Earth. So he had to go to a place that needed him more, and then be assaulted fish. 4-9 immortal sect. Enlin flew back atop his brick. A sense of warmth welled up in his heart at the sight of the familiar pavilions and buildings and the familiar people. Before he knew it, the 4-9 immortal sect had become his second home. Every time he returned to the 4-9 immortal sect, he felt like he was returning home. Welcome back, Sect Leader Enlin. Sect Leader Enlin's radiance is as vast as the mountains and seas, as eternal as the sun and moon. All of the adorable disciples lined up outside the gate, as usual, and they continued to chant different catchphrases each time. All of them stared at Enlin with scorching light in their eyes, as if to say, "Boss, boss, what did you do this time? How many heavenly gods did you kill?" And Lin was a little exasperated at the sight of the scorching light in his eyes. "Don't look at me like that. I didn't reap any rewards this time." All of the disciples heaved sighs of relief upon hearing this. Thankfully, Sect Leader Enlin was still a human, and he wasn't a god who went out to kill heavenly gods. Enlin didn't kill any heavenly gods after leaving the 4-9 immortal sect. Instead, he closed the gap between him and the disciples, as if he had finally become a little more humanized. Sect Leader's imperfections make him even more perfect in my heart. Sun Xiaodie's eyes glowed as she spoke with a blush on her face. No one is perfect. He's powerful, self-reliant, and transcendent, but he's not omnipotent. This is our beloved sect leader, and he will always be number 1 in my heart. Ning Rik spoke with a serious expression. At this moment, Bai Ling made her way over to Enlin with a faint smile on her face. The sect leader didn't reap any rewards, but his bodyguard, Little Rabbit, killed a heavenly god. The sect leader is going to reward his subordinate. All of you should be like his bodyguards and work hard to resist the heavenly human tribe. Sect leader's rewards await all of you. All of the disciples, Ning Rik, Sun Xiaodai, clasped a hand over her chest. She wanted to praise him, but she also wanted to cry at the same time. She had thought that their sect leader would finally stop flexing, but who would have thought that his bodyguard would do it for him? If even a subordinate could kill a heavenly god, what reason did they have to continue being useless? Following a sect leader like this really was a lot of pressure. All of the disciples returned to the sect and began their journey of cultivation. Su Xiaolan took back Enlin's cauldron and continued to cook for Enlin. Black Spirit Snake and White Spirit Snake announced in the name of the Heaven-Mending sect that they had slain the heavenly mind god on earth, creating a massive stir across the entire Taichu continent. Lan Xiaoni also joined in on the fun and announced that they had slain the heavenly poison god and the heavenly weather god in the West Sea, creating yet another massive stir across the entire Taichu continent. The three beauties appeared on all of the major newspapers and magazines. The true culprits were the Rabbit Maiden and Enlin. They had been hiding behind the scenes and were completely unmoved by the events unfolding in the world. Yi Ling returned to the sect to cultivate, announcing that she couldn't hold back any longer and wanted to make a breakthrough. Enlin stood guard for his disciple with tears streaming down his face. He didn't know what it felt like to make a breakthrough when one couldn't hold back any longer, and he didn't want to know. Immediately afterward, Yi Ling's breakthrough was as simple as eating and drinking again, and she also attained a divine Tao related to darkness. This was very much in line with his disciple's assassin style. Enlin sparred with Yi Ling in order to quickly familiarize himself with his current cultivation base. He was then elated to discover that his disciple's normal power was already comparable to that of a Heaven Pioneer stage great general. If she unleashed her full power, she would be able to crush even a Heaven Pioneer stage powerful being. Yi Ling was already one of the most powerful beings in the 4-9 Immortal sect. Time flew by, and another dozen or so days passed by in the blink of an eye. The sun in Enlin's sea of vital energy suddenly extinguished. Ding dong. Congratulations, host, on successfully engulfing a sun. You have now progressed to the return to void final stage. Chapter 1876. Enlin could see that the sun in his sea of vital energy was beginning to disappear. No, to put it more accurately, it had moved from his sea of vital energy to his heart, where it was then completely engulfed by a certain power. Extreme light creates darkness. Enlin's body broke through its shackles, and his aura began to soar explosively. An extremely profound power began to surge from his heart. This was darkness to the extreme. It was nothingness to the extreme. Enlin suddenly attained countless insights into the Tao of darkness. He went from shallow to profound, then from Tao to the extreme, where he discovered the essence. He really wanted to deny this, but it was undoubtedly the case that he was related to darkness. In fact, no one in this world could compare to his understanding of darkness. Enlin had progressed to the return to void pinnacle stage, and the power of the divine Tao he had attained was the divine Tao of darkness. Golden void lightning began to fall relentlessly, forging his body and consciousness. This tribulation transcendence shocked all of the 4-9 Immortal sect disciples and elders. All of them looked up at the boundless lightning crashing down from the sky. Just the unintentional might emanating from the lightning struck fear into their hearts. Who's transcending their tribulation? How could there be such terrifying lightning might? If I were to face even one bolt of this lightning, I would definitely be reduced to ashes. Sun Yuluo and Xin Yuan Cheng looked on with amazement. At this moment, Dabai was already beginning to get excited, and he stuck out his tongue with a scorching light in his eyes. It's Big Brother and is transcending his tribulation. Woof! Shui Zhantian flapped his little wings with an extremely proud expression. Master has taken another extremely important step. He has transcended heaven and earth, transcended the heavens, and transcended the heavens. Everyone was ecstatic upon learning that it was Enlin transcending his tribulation, and all of them gathered around him. Su Xiaolan stood guard around Enlin, and all of the cultivators within a radius of over a kilometer were evacuated. If a normal mighty figure were transcending their tribulation, They would have to evacuate everyone within a radius of tens of thousands of meters for safety reasons. However, Enlin didn't have to worry about that at all. This was because Enlin was transcending his tribulation of golden void lightning. The golden void lightning would strike wherever he wanted it to strike. Even the lightning during the tribulation was the same. As such, the disciples and elders of the sect didn't have to worry about the golden void lightning missing its target. Bolts of golden void lightning roared as they crashed into Enlin's body, becoming nutrients for his breakthrough. The dark clouds in the sky were torn apart, and tens of thousands of bolts of golden void lightning converged to form an extremely powerful lightning mutant beast. It had 9 sinister dragon heads, and below its necks was a formation that had been formed by the fusion of yin and yang. This formation was imbued with the truths of the great Tao of heaven and earth, and the aura it exuded was far more powerful than that of a Tao integration stage super mighty figure. Rumble. The pressure descended as if it wanted to crush the entire sky. The strangeness and power of this thing had far exceeded everyone's imagination. Even the experienced and knowledgeable Goldie was dumbfounded. A pair of dazed and shocked eyes seemed to be saying, "What the F***CK is this?" While everyone was still in shock, a golden lightning divine halo appeared above Enlin's head. "Don't use any fancy stuff. Get out of my way." He slapped a palm toward the lightning mutant beast in the sky. The lightning mutant beast wailed in anguish, and its body crumbled into countless bolts of golden void lightning before obediently striking Enlin's body one after another. How domineering! How domineering! Shui Zhantian's body trembled with excitement. Our children should be like Godin. Dabai turned to Shui Zhantian. Are you not afraid that Big Brother and will turn around and eat you? Woof. Boom, 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 boom. Bolts of golden void lightning fell one after another. Tribulation lightning of 49 by 79 and 81 by 99 did not apply to Enlin at all. Everyone had already lost count of how many bolts of tribulation lightning Enlin had been struck by. In any case, he was being struck to his heart's content. The tribulation clouds in the sky tried to dissipate on several occasions, but Enlin forced them to stay as he yelled, "Don't go." The golden void lightning is like a sponge. As long as you squeeze it as hard as you can, there will always be more. He then continued to squeeze more golden void lightning into himself. The tribulation cloud sobbed in the sky, but it was unable to extract any more golden void divine lightning. It looked as if its body had been completely hollowed out, and Enlin finally released it. The tribulation clouds dissipated. Enlin had successfully become a return to void final stage mighty figure. Raucous cheers erupted throughout the sect, creating a sea of celebration. The sect leader's combat prowess had already defied the natural order, and now that he had made another breakthrough, no one knew just how powerful he had become. All of the sect disciples would believe it even if someone told them that Enlin could destroy the heavens. Enlin could sense the boundless power surging through his body, as well as the enhancements in all aspects of his body. In particular, he could sense that even though his heart was still beating, it had already become a deep and reserved darkness. This peculiar feeling told him that he had already attained an invincible body. Just how powerful am I? Perhaps a god of creation will be able to give me an answer. Enlin looked up into the blue sky, and the darkness in his eyes became extremely pure. Congratulations on your breakthrough, Enlin. Su Xiaolan quickly made her way toward him with a vibrant smile on her face. Do you feel invincible again now? Enlin's expression faltered slightly. My God, you even know about this? A vibrant smile appeared on the woman's face as she looked at Enlin. You way too easy to read. Big Brotherin, congratulations on your breakthrough. Woof. Dabai ran over to him. Master, you've achieved mastery? When are we going to go crush the heavens? Shui Zhantian flapped his little wings with excitement. Classmate Enlin, holy leader. One friend after another came to offer their congratulations. Master, what's your divine Tao? Little Gu asked curiously. That's right, what's your divine Tao? Show us. Xiao Hong swayed her body from side to side as she spoke in a sweet voice. And Lin shook his head with a smile. I can't show my divine Tao in case of calamity beyond my control. Everyone's heart jolted upon hearing this. Did this mean he was so bad *SS that he couldn't control it himself? The battling Buddha had just emerged from Bai Ling's nursing home with his golden banded staff in his hand, and his eyes were bright golden as he sighed with emotion. Mr. and Lin's cultivation base has improved, and I'm even less of a match for him now. But for some reason, I still want to fight him. Every time he thought back to Lin's earth-shattering punch, his body would tremble, and his blood churned as a ball of flames burned in his heart. And Lin didn't know what Goku was feeling. After his breakthrough, he immediately swallowed an immortal pill before going into seclusion to stabilize his cultivation base. Just as he was cultivating in seclusion, he discovered something strange in his sea of vital energy. Ever since the sun disappeared, the 3 strange eggs in his sea of vital energy had begun to crack open. The auras of 3 holy beasts surged forth from the eggs. These auras were very pure, very powerful, and ethereal. There was even a sense of immortality and uniqueness to them. And Lin's heart jolted. Could it be that the eggs in his sea of vital energy were about to hatch? What kind of little thing was going to appear? Chapter 1877. And Lin was always very friendly toward little things in his sea of vital energy. This was an instinctive reaction. After all, they were nurtured in his sea of vital energy. There was always a sense of motherly love to him. No, it was more like a father's kindness. That's right, and Lin felt like he was the father of the little whale, and Kirin, and the little vermilion bird. Could it be that 3 more cubs are about to be born? And Lin's heart was filled with excitement. His benevolent gaze pierced through his dantian to observe everything that was happening within his sea of vital energy. There were 3 eggs of different colors, and the cracks were widening. These eggs had been formed by Lin's engulfment spell technique, which allowed him to absorb the essential divine intent of the holy beasts, as well as a large amount of soul power. Hence, the eggs that would hatch would most likely be related to the holy beasts as well. The holy flame vermilion bird also seemed to have realized something, and it circled around in the air above his sea of vital energy, while letting loose a clear cry of excitement. Bursts of white flames exploded in the air, illuminating his sea of vital energy. And Kirin's eyes widened like a curious baby, looking forward to the birth of new life. Kacha! A crisp cracking sound erupted from within his sea of vital energy. Immediately afterward, a green eggshell cracked open. A little beast with a dragon's head, a turtle's body, and a snake's tail slowly crawled out from the eggshell. Its head was green, and its turtle shell was a very ordinary brown color, but there were all types of extremely profound formations carved onto its shell. A vast and holy aura emanated from its body as soon as it appeared. He hadn't even introduced himself, but Lin was instantly enlightened by this revelation. This was one of the 4 holy beasts, Xianwu. And Lin's heart was still in shock when another crisp crack erupted. The pristine white eggshell cracked open. Roar! A tiger's roar sent massive waves surging through his sea of vital energy. A ferocious-looking little tiger with 4 short legs and a pair of small wings on its back broke out of the egg and roared at everything around it. It roared at Kirin, at the little whale, at the holy flame vermilion bird, and at the little Xianwu with an extremely domineering and aggressive expression. It was as if it was trying to convey one message: come and kill me. This was one of the 4 holy beasts, the white tiger. The black egg with intricate patterns on it finally cracked open. A little black dragon, like a loach, broke out of the egg. The little black dragon had 9 claws, and its body was slender and graceful. Its scales were fine and glossy, and its eyes were pure gold, containing the most fundamental dragon might. As soon as it appeared, it soared into the sky and looked down at everything from high above. One of the 4 sacred beasts, the azure dragon, had appeared, and Lin suddenly realized that the four sacred beasts had somehow been gathered in his chi sea. This was really, the vermilion bird cried, the black tortoise dove into the sea, the white tiger roared, and the azure dragon spiraled. Wisps of holy, ethereal, and immortal aura surged in his sea of energy. And Kirin and the salted heavenly void whale were both completely rooted to the spot by the scenes unfolding before their eyes, and their auras were completely suppressed by them. One holy flame vermilion bird was already so bad *SS. Now that there were three more of them, how was he supposed to deal with them? And Kirin and the heavenly void whale chose to wait and see. And Lin was getting a little excited. If he could use the power of the three holy beasts, wouldn't he become even more powerful? He immediately tried to contact the other three holy beasts, only to find that he couldn't contact them at all, as if they didn't belong to him. After that, Lin discovered something very special when he was in contact with them. The little black dragon gave him a sense of familiarity, an indescribable sense of familiarity. Furthermore, the little black dragon wasn't as clueless as the white tiger and Xianwu. Instead, it was surveying its surroundings in a very human-like manner. It then seemed to have sensed something, and it raised its head to meet Lin's gaze, upon which a faint smile appeared on its face. This, and Lin's heart jolted upon seeing this. He finally confirmed what the little black dragon that had just hatched out of the egg was. The little black dragon was the azure dragon that had hidden itself in his mind. This was the real holy beast azure dragon. Did the azure dragon use some kind of method to hide in the egg and hatch again? When the azure dragon had used its power to ravage the ghost tribe mighty figure and swallow the true dragon divine tool, it had all been unleashed at the expense of Lin's energy. It was dependent on him and wasn't an independent entity. But now, the azure dragon had hatched from the egg of the origin consciousness. It seemed like the azure dragon had truly become a brand new life, an independent individual, and Lin was a little flustered. There was a real thing in his sea of vital energy. It was also at this moment that the little black dragon in his sea of vital energy suddenly uttered a strange syllable. The little black dragon equals is identical to sigma omega o caret. The other three holy beasts all gave their responses upon hearing this. Chirp, roar, sizzle, and Lin was completely perplexed. Right at this moment, a burst of power transcended beyond his sea of vital energy and struck the ring on his finger. Boom! A black light suddenly erupted from the ring. This is the azure dragon ring I obtained from the vermilion bird trial grounds? And Lin's expression shifted drastically. Meanwhile, in the eastern region of the Kingdom of the Nine States, within the base camp of the Snow Maidens, Shangguan Yi was meditating on a bed of ice, and she made a peculiar hand seal with her slender fingers. Boundless frosty energy revolved around her body like dragons, tempering her body. At this moment, a brilliant blue light suddenly erupted from a blue ring on her index finger. What's going on? Shangguan Yi was perplexed. However, before she had a chance to react, her body was engulfed by the blue light, and she was propelled into the clouds by the ring. The Snow Maiden's base camp instantly erupted into chaos. My God, look, what's that blue light? Crap. High Priestess Shangguan Yi has flown into the sky. Ice Matriarch. Quick, go save Mistress Ice Matriarch. On the eastern front of the Kingdom of the Nine States, Mo Hai was half naked, and there were a dozen or so Crimson Robe Corps disciples around him, all of whom were unleashing fire-type spell techniques in a frenzy to bombard his body. Mo Hai remained completely unfazed as he braced his muscular chest and withstood the onslaught of flames. Ha ha! Put more power into it. Did you not eat? These puny flames aren't even enough to light a cigarette for me. Mo Hai roared with laughter as flames exploded relentlessly on his body, turning his skin bright red from the heat. All of the disciples blushed with shame upon hearing this, and they bombarded Mo Hai with spell techniques with even greater force. He was just standing there and allowing them to attack him, but they couldn't even make him feel anything. This was far too humiliating. In a fit of rage, a cold-blooded disciple used a powerful skill, blasting out a large-scale flame explosion. Boom! Emohai suddenly let loose a sharp cry before disappearing into the sky as a crimson streak of light. Everyone suddenly fell silent. All of the disciples silently turned to look at the disciple. The disciple's face paled as he shook his head relentlessly. No, I didn't do it. At the 4-9 Immortal Sect, within the palace wherein Lin was in seclusion, a massive four-colored formation suddenly appeared beneath his feet and began to revolve relentlessly. The four holy beasts stirred restlessly within his sea of vital energy. He didn't even have a chance to react before a series of screams erupted in the sky. Boom, boom, boom. The ceiling of the palace was shattered by a streak of light. 3 people fell from the sky. They were Yang Yuan, Emohai, and Shangwani. All of them had one thing in common, and that was that they were all cultivators who possessed the rings of the 4 holy beasts. Shangwan fell from the sky and was unlucky enough to crash into Enlin again, inflicting a second wound upon him. Her delicate body was once again taken advantage of by Enlin. Enlin's mouth gaped open in astonishment. Collecting the 4 holy beasts could allow one to summon these ring companions? Chapter 1878. Enlin, what happened? Where am I? Shangwan took a couple of steps back, and a faint blush appeared on her face as she surveyed her surroundings. Enlin replied with a solemn expression. This is the 4-9 Immortal Sect. My God, you summoned us to the 4-9 Immortal Sect? Emohai was given a fright. He was in the middle of a baptism of flames. So why did he suddenly appear here? Could it be that you need our help with something urgent? Yang Yuan looked at Enlin with a calm expression. Enlin pointed to the 4-colored formation beneath his feet with a resigned expression. Actually, it wasn't me who summoned you here. It was most likely the 4 little things in my sea of vital energy. Isn't the sea of vital energy all liquid? What the hell are these little things? Emohai was astonished. Well, it's a long story. Enlin replied. Aren't the little things in your sea of vital energy yours? Can they move on their own? Is yours a sea of vital energy or a small world? Shangwan, was also astonished. She felt like Enlin's sea of vital energy was a fake. Enlin's lips twitched. Well, it's an even longer story. Then make it short. Yang Yuan urged in a panicked voice. Enlin nodded. 4 little holy beasts hatched in my sea of vital energy, and they conspired to summon you here. Gasp. Everyone drew a sharp intake of breath. Can you be more specific? Emohai asked with difficulty. Holy beasts were far too far away from them. They were the only beings that transcended beyond this world and stood at the pinnacle of the beast tribe. Even the Vermilion Bird sect, one of the 4 great sects of the Kingdom of the 9 States, was only able to develop after being blessed by the holy beast, the Vermilion Bird. Enlin was just about to say something when someone suddenly barged in. Enlin, are you all right? An extremely beautiful woman in a jade dress rushed in with a panicked expression. I'm fine. Why are you here, Xiaolan? Enlin asked. I faintly felt a summoning, so I came to check out the situation, Su Xiaolan explained. She walked in quickly and took a closer look. When she saw Emohai and the others, she was stunned again. Then she covered her mouth and exclaimed, Heavens, the things that fell from the sky are you guys? Why are you here? You'll have to ask Enlin about that. Yang Yuan smiled. We were summoned here by the 4 little things in Enlin's sea of vital energy, Shangwan replied. Su Xiaolan blinked. 4 little things? Enlin explained, little vermilion bird, little black tortoise, little white tiger, and little azure dragon. Su Xiaolan's eyes widened. Has your sea of energy become a zoo? Enlin, the 4 holy beasts within Enlin's body suddenly roared in unison as they unleashed their powers at the same time. The 4 powers intertwined and triggered some kind of special power. That power pierced through the sea of vital energy and merged into the 4-colored formation beneath Enlin's feet, upon which an even more powerful and ethereal aura suddenly erupted from the formation. Shangwan, and the others stumbled back in fear. They didn't know where this formation had come from. and they didn't want to be teleported somewhere else for no reason. It would be a tragedy if they were to encounter danger. And Lin was not flustered as he calmly looked on at everything unfolding before his eyes. He was invincible now, and he didn't know who could make him cower. The formation contracted, and the light converged to form an antiquated stone gate. Beyond the stone gate was a boundless starry sky that struck one with a sense of loneliness. Is this a passageway to a mystic realm? Yang Yuan exclaimed. It's not as simple as opening a passageway to a mystic realm. A white light flashed through in Lin's eyes as he spoke with a grave expression. This gate can connect to the outside world. The outside world? You mean the world of another god of creation? Emohai asked, and Lin shook his head. No, I mean, the world created by the gods of creation is like a small box within a big box. However, this gate connects to a world outside of the Taichu continent, which is to say, the world outside of the big box. Everyone was astonished upon hearing this. In their eyes, the Taichu continent was the core world, and all of the other worlds within the Taichu continent were subsidiary spaces of the Taichu continent. As for what the outside world of the Taichu continent was like, they had no information on that. Hasn't this world been sealed off by Pangu? Even if it's a loophole in the spirit realm, only a god of creation would be able to force it open, right? Su Xiaolan knew a little more, but she still found it difficult to understand. All of the holy beasts are god of creation stage beings, so it's not impossible for all four of them to create a gate that connects to the outside world. And Lin wasn't all that surprised. However, the rest of the people silently retreated a certain distance. The unknown often meant danger. This stone gate was created by the four little things in your sea of vital energy? Su Xiaolan asked, and Lin nodded. Emohai was a little nervous. What do they want? They want us to go in? And Lin stroked his chin. Everyone silently retreated a little more upon hearing this. They had already exited the palace wherein Lin was cultivating in seclusion. And Lin, Su Xiaolan remained in place beside Lin, and she clasped a hand over her heart. I can't help but feel like there's something in this gate that's summoning me. Is it the vermilion bird bloodline? And Lin fell into deep thought. Su Xiaolan had only just run over because of this inexplicable summoning power. So be it. This gate was created by the four little things in my body, so I'll go in with you. And Lin said to Su Xiaolan. Su Xiaolan was a little concerned, but at this moment, a warm, powerful hand had already wrapped itself around her soft, fair hand. There are no buts. The opportunity is fleeting, and we don't have time to be cautious. And Lin spoke with a firm expression. Don't be afraid if we encounter any danger. Don't forget, I'm invincible now. Su Xiaolan looked at Lin and nodded with a smile at his smug and confident expression. All right, let's go in and have a look. After that, the two of them held hands and walked into the stone door without looking back. Shangguan Mo Hai and Yang Yuan all sighed with emotion as they watched the two of them disappear into the starry sky. They sure are brave. They're still able to forge ahead in the face of such a terrifying unknown. Mo Hai sighed. He was different. He had borrowed this ring from Xiaolon. Strictly speaking, he was just an innocent bystander, so he would not go. And Lin and Su Xiaolan are very powerful, so they have the confidence to do so. We're not powerful enough, so we should be more cautious, Yang Yuan said in a calm voice. Shangguan Yi's eyes shimmered with emotion. It's actually love that has made them braver. The three of them sighed with emotion, but they didn't regret their decision. It was too dangerous to go in, so it was better for them to stay put. A smile appeared on Shangguan Yi's face. Let's wait here for Lin and Su Xiaolan to return. Her voice had only just fallen. A piercing light suddenly erupted from a stone gate. Their rings were activated by the energy, and balls of light enshrouded their bodies. Yang Yuan's expression shifted. What? No. Mo Hai felt an irresistible power. Crap, it's the power of the stone gate. Shangguan exclaimed. All three of their expressions shifted drastically, and before they even had a chance to escape, they were sucked into the stone gate. Chapter 1879. within the Azure Dragon star system. This was a large star system with a total of 161 planets. There were a whopping 18 planets that could sustain life. At this moment, on the ice pole star, which was perpetually covered in snow and ice, a series of eastern dragon-like ice and frost dragons were wailing with anguish. Hurry, run, get into the spatial teleportation, spell formation, and retreat to the main star. A giant white dragon that was tens of thousands of feet in length and clad in a suit of blue crystal armor let loose a thunderous roar that reverberated throughout heaven and earth, and the power of extreme frost was emanating from its mouth. Hundreds of thousands of ice and frost dragons flew toward the white pillar of light in the distance at the same time. Behind them, the ground was trembling incessantly. Unexpectedly, there were several million muscular beasts that resembled chimpanzees, but each of them was 100 feet tall, chasing after them at high speed. The gorillas wielded all types of weapons that glowed with spiritual light as they sprinted along the ground. All of them were extremely agile, and after catching up to the ice and frost dragons, they would mercilessly smash their weapons into the ice and frost dragons. One ice and frost dragon after another was smashed into pieces, and blood splattered through the air. They howled with anguish as they fled for their lives. Aside from the millions of gorillas, there were close to 10 million snake-like beasts with spider legs on their lower bodies and 3 twisting waists on their upper bodies, all of which were in hot pursuit of the ice and frost dragons. Not only were they extremely fast, but they could also extend their necks to ensnare the ice and frost dragons before injecting poison into their bodies to kill them. In the sky above, there were also millions of powerful winged tribe powerful beings trying to stop the ice and frost dragons. This was a battle that rocked the entire realm of stars. The ancient desolate race, one of the 3 major races of the realm of stars, and the Azure Dragon race. The ice and frost dragons could crush their opponents individually, but there were too many of them. There were over 20 million ferocious beasts charging toward them, but there were only over 500,000 ice and frost dragons, which meant that one ice and frost dragon would have to kill 40 ferocious beasts. If they were to fight to the death, the ice and frost dragons had very little chance of winning, so they could only retreat. Hurry! Hold on for another 50,000 kilometers. The spatial teleportation spell formation is up ahead. Great General Kuin-gu of the ice and frost dragons waved his gargantuan body of tens of thousands of feet as he commanded the army to advance. He was the most powerful being on the ice pole star and possessed a Tao integration final stage cultivation base. Aside from it, there were 3 other Tao integration stage true dragons on this planet, but all of them had fallen in the previous battle. These frost dragons were the last living creatures on this planet, in the direction that the frost dragon army had fled. Suddenly, fiery clouds filled the sky. An incomparably huge red meteor fell from the sky. The target of the explosion was none other than Frost Dragon Great General Kuin-gu. Roar! Kuin-gu let loose a ferocious roar at the meteorite, and a frosty aura tore through the air before crashing into the meteorite. The flames on the surface of the meteorite were instantly snuffed out, and even its speed of descent began to decelerate at a rate discernible to the naked eye. In the end, it shattered into dust less than 50 kilometers away from Kuin-gu. Before Kuin-gu even had a chance to catch his breath, a black figure leaped out from the shattered meteorite. This was a black gorilla enshrouded in crimson flames, and it was wielding a divine rank club that was spewing flames, which it swung viciously toward Kuin-gu's body. Bang! Kuin-gu's body caved in from the terrifying force. Kuin-gu let loose a wail of anguish before crashing into the ground. Ha! Kuin-gu, you've been targeted by the ancient divine ape, and you still want to run? The black gorilla chortled with glee. This was a being at the Tao integration pinnacle stage. It was also at this moment that countless streaks of sharp white light descended from the sky again, encompassing an area with a radius of several hundred kilometers. They were like divine, punishing heavenly swords, slicing tens of thousands of fleeing ice and frost dragons into mincemeat. There's no need for the Azure Dragon branch of the Ice and Frost Dragon tribe to exist in this world. A cold and ethereal voice sounded from the sky above. The entire sky had transformed into a sea of pure white light, within which countless celestial swords trembled slightly. The Frost Dragon army was struck by a sense of despair upon seeing this. A muscular divine falcon over 100,000 feet in length emerged from the sea of light before looking down at the fleeing Frost Dragon army with a cold expression. Kuan-Gu's features paled. The ancient tribe's immortal vein falcon? Aren't you supposed to be on the Azure Tree star? The Azure Tree star has already been conquered by our tribe, and the Wood Dragon tribe has already been eradicated. The divine falcon's voice was cold, as if it were talking about something very mundane. How could this be? Kuan-Gu's expression was filled with shock, and he threw up another mouthful of blood. Don't be sad. Your Frost Dragon tribe will soon be able to accompany them. Another sinister voice sounded. A dark hole suddenly appeared on the ground below. A terrifying suction force swept forth like a black hole, engulfing everything around it in a frenzy. Over 10,000 Frost Dragons had no time to evade before they were sucked into the hole, and they didn't even get a chance to cry out before their bodies were annihilated into nothingness. Phew! The blood of the Frost Dragons sure is delicious. A Tao integration pinnacle stage savage beast with a lower body of a spider and the upper body of 3 giant pythons emerged from the darkness, and with each and every step it took, the darkness around it would expand and engulf everything. Black Abyss Demonic Spider. An expression of despair appeared on Kuan-Gu's face. There were 3 Tao integration pinnacle stage mighty figures blocking their path forward. Not only that, but there were also 2 Tao integration stage mythological beasts chasing after them. Meanwhile, it was the only Tao integration stage super mighty figure on their side. In the face of such a powerful being, the Ice and Frost Dragon's remaining advantage as a powerful individual was completely crushed. The Frost Dragon tribe has been destroyed far too easily. The 8 tribes of the Azure Dragon tribe are nothing. The ancient divine ape chortled with glee. Kuan-Gu retorted coldly, "Would you dare to say that if Master Azure Dragon was still alive?" "Ha! Who does the Azure Dragon think he is? He's just an old and feeble holy beast. If he dares to stand before me, I'll beat him until he cries out for help." The primordial divine ape swung its cudgel around with an arrogant expression. The Azure Dragon was already dead anyway, so it didn't matter how much it bluffed. Beaster starred. "How dare you insult Master Azure Dragon?" A Frost Dragon at the Return to Void pinnacle stage roared as it pounced toward the ancient divine ape. "Tianlian, calm down." Kuan-Gu's expression shifted drastically. At this moment, the ancient divine ape's club had already fallen upon the oncoming Frost Dragon. Bam! The club tore through the Frost Dragon's divine Tao and pulverized the Frost Dragon's body into mincemeat. "Tui, piece of trash." The ancient divine ape put away its club with a disdainful expression as it looked around at the enraged dragon tribe cultivators. Who else? Just as all of the Frost Dragons were about to fight to the death. Kacha! A spatial rift appeared in the air. A streak of light descended to form 2 figures on the ground. Chapter 1880. 2 figures appeared out of nowhere and landed right in the middle of the confrontation between the 2 powerhouses. One of them was a handsome man in a flowing white robe. The other was a woman in a jade dress with exquisite beauty. Both of them had extremely good looks, and they immediately attracted countless pairs of eyes as soon as they appeared. They were none other than Enlin and Su Xiaolan, who had just stepped through the stone gate. The place we've landed in doesn't seem to be a very good place. Su Xiaolan's brows furrowed slightly at the sight of the powerful beings and the fleeing army. Holy F***CK. The gorillas here are so powerful. Have they become a bad *SS tribe? And Lin looked back at the scenes of the Ice and Frost Dragons wielding all types of spiritual weapons, and he felt like this world really was a fantasy. 2 humans suddenly appeared. The immortal vein eagle emerged from the sea of light and narrowed its eyes. Are they here to reinforce Kuan-Gu? The black abyss demonic spider chuckled coldly. The ancient divine ape looked at Enlin and Su Xiaolan with disdain on its face. So it's two ugly C asterisk and TS. One of them is of the Tao integration intermediate stage, while the other is of the return to void final stage. They're just pieces of trash. I can kill them in an instant. Enlin. Su Xiaolan. The faces of the two, who were originally aloof from worldly affairs, immediately darkened. Who are you calling trash? Enlin spoke in a cold voice. Who are you calling ugly C asterisk and TS? Su Xiaolan's eyes flashed with a cold light. The ancient divine ape chortled with mirth. I'm talking about you. Are you not allowed to say that you're ugly and weak? You two pieces of trash want to reinforce the ice and frost dragon tribe? I'm just a wooden club, I can. Whoosh. Enlin had already appeared before the ancient divine ape, before unleashing an almighty fist. The ancient divine ape had only just reacted to find that the fist had already landed on its face. It was far, far too fast. Boom! His fist energy exploded, bringing with it a terrifying power that surpassed everything. It easily tore apart the desolate ancient god ape's body and smashed its head like a watermelon. In the next instant, a woman in a jade dress had already appeared before the ancient divine ape, and her dragon sparrow sword let loose a roar as it sliced the ancient divine ape's headless body in half. The scorching holy flames imbued within the sword projection spread throughout the entire body, completely incinerating the ancient divine ape's body before finally vaporizing it. A mournful wail suddenly came from heaven and earth. Heaven and earth mourn the death of a Tao integration stage super mighty figure. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. By the time the mighty beings reacted, the primordial divine ape's corpse had already been incinerated into nothingness. I advise you to be kind, but you didn't listen. This is your fate. Enlin said calmly. Su Xiaolan's pretty face was also as cold as ice. I gave you a chance to reorganize your words, but you didn't cherish it. I can only act on behalf of the heavens and purify you. A cold wind blew past. Silence. Deathly silence. Kuan-gu, the black abyss demonic spider, and the immortal Vane falcon all stared blankly at the scenes unfolding before their eyes. All of the fleeing ice and frost dragons also faltered as they stared at Enlin and Su Xiaolan with incredulity etched on their faces. The ancient divine ape had died, and it had been insta-killed. The ancient divine ape wasn't just some random trash. It was a Tao integration stage, super mighty figure. And it was a super mighty figure at the Tao integration pinnacle stage, the most powerful being below the paramount god level. However, such a being had been insta-killed. This was the fastest Tao integration stage, super mighty figure to die that Kuan-gu had ever seen. Everything that had just transpired was completely beyond his imagination. A return to void final stage human crushed the divine ape's head. The immortal Vane falcon's voice trembled. That Tao integration intermediate stage woman in a jade dress is also far more powerful than I imagined. Expressions of horror appeared on all three of the black abyss demonic spiders' heads. There's no way a human could be this powerful. They must be fake. They must be a heavenly monarch of the spirit tribe in disguise. The black abyss demonic spider spat out a black mirror, from which a piercing white light erupted forth. Faceless divine mirror, reveal their true appearances. Enlin narrowed his eyes in displeasure at the glaring reflection in the mirror. Don't let me see my handsome face just because you don't like it. He launched an almighty fist through the air, using only the most basic power in his body. Bam! The massive force crashed into the faceless divine mirror, causing it to cave in and crack open. No! The black abyss demonic spider was also struck by the shock waves of Enlin's fist, and it let loose a blood-curdling wail as it flew back. My mirror! My Xiaohei! You killed my Xiaohei! An expression of madness and resentment appeared on the black abyss demonic spider's face. It was clear that the faceless divine mirror that Enlin had shattered was extremely important to it. The heavenly monarchs of the spirit tribe are coming, So the extreme Tao beast monarch of the ancient tribe won't just stand by and do nothing. I'll hold you off, as long as I can hold you off. Once the extreme Tao beast monarch arrives, you'll all be dead. A ferocious expression appeared on the black abyss demonic spider's face, and it plunged its spider legs viciously into the ground, upon which darkness spread for close to 500 kilometers in the blink of an eye. You'll all be trapped in the darkness forever. Ha ha ha. The ground was transformed into darkness that engulfed everything. Snow, rocks, and mountain ranges all slowly fell into the darkness. The hundreds of thousands of ice and frost dragons in the sky were also struck by a terrifying suction force as they fell into the darkness below. Even the ape and spider beasts on the ground were unable to escape this terrifying suction force, and they all let loose blood-curdling cries as they disappeared into the darkness. That's right, this was a suction force that didn't differentiate between friend and foe. Kuan-gu was extremely powerful, and he was able to resist the suction force of the darkness. But he could also sense an omnipresent sealing power that seemed to have instantly engulfed his power. No. One of his subordinates and comrades was engulfed by the inky black earth, and his eyes widened as he roared with grief and despair. The power of darkness was far too terrifying, and Kuan-gu was completely powerless to prevent it from happening. This is the ultimate technique I unleashed by burning my life force. The earth of darkness can engulf and bind all living beings. Even a god of creation will be temporarily trapped and tremble in the face of my most powerful power of darkness. The black abyss demonic spider cackled as it turned toward Enlin. However, it was almost scared **** at the sight of Enlin. Enlin was making his way toward it, as if he were completely unaffected by the suction force, and he was even able to compress the ground with ease. Impossible. Even a heavenly monarch of the spirit tribe wouldn't be completely unaffected. The black abyss demonic spider shook its head relentlessly as if it had seen something completely unbelievable. Tremble in the face of your power of darkness? A white figure appeared before the black abyss demonic spider in the blink of an eye before flicking a finger. Do you understand darkness? A speck of black light shot forth from Enlin's index finger. Deathly silence ensued. Heaven and earth fell into absolute silence at that moment. There wasn't even any color left. The black abyss demonic spider's entire body trembled. It had witnessed the ultimate horror and nothingness from the black speck before its eyes, which represented the end of everything, an end that was even more terrifying than death itself. No, no, the black abyss demonic spider tried to escape, only to find that its body had already been immobilized. This was also the power of darkness, but its darkness was like a toy on the surface, and it was instantly suppressed to the point where it couldn't even release any energy fluctuations in the face of true darkness. The darkness suddenly expanded to encompass the black abyss demonic spider. It then suddenly contracted to become a black speck before disappearing into nothingness. The sky reappeared, and the darkness on the ground disappeared. In its place was flat and smooth ground. The black abyss demonic spider had also disappeared without a trace. Su Xiaolan stroked her chin, feeling as if her horizons had been broadened. Is this what you call a dog eating a dog? Chapter 1881. Heaven and Earth mourn the fall of a Tao integration stage super mighty figure. The black abyss demonic spider had fallen. This was the second super mighty figure at the Tao integration pinnacle stage to fall. All of the remaining spider and snake beasts became extremely uneasy and horrified. Their boss was already dead. How were they supposed to fight this battle? Were they supposed to sacrifice themselves? Kuan-gu's mouth gaped open with astonishment. Insta-kill. Insta-kill again. Even though the black abyss demonic spider had unleashed its most powerful technique, it was still insta-killed in the end. Enlin remained calm and collected throughout the entire process, as if he were an invincible being who had transcended above all else. He could do whatever he wanted, and no one could stop him. Enlin heaved a light sigh, and he felt an indescribable sense of feebleness. This was the first time he had used his power of the divine Tao, which was the power of darkness. He didn't dare to use it too much, but it was still very effective, even to the extent that he was struck by a sense of horror. Too powerful. The Black Abyss demonic spider at the Tao integration pinnacle stage was like a normal spider in his eyes. It felt like it was nothing more than a single strike. Just one strike. Complete and utter annihilation. Complete and utter annihilation. He had killed it effortlessly. Who else? Lin looked up into the sky. The sea of pure white light in the sky had already disappeared. As for the immortal Vane Falcon at the Tao integration pinnacle stage, it had already fled. They sure got away fast. Lin smiled, but he didn't feel dejected. He then turned around to look at the army charging at him, his expression calm and indifferent. Just a single glance. The earth in the distance instantly fell silent. The rumbling continued, but the sound of footsteps was getting further and further away. That's right, the spider and snake beasts, the chimpanzee beasts, the wing tribe beasts, and the army of over 10 million all fled in unison. And Lin had forced the army of over 10 million into retreat with just a single glance. They had no choice, and Lin had killed two of their most powerful great generals as easily as slaughtering dogs. They simply couldn't afford to mess with such a terrifying being, so all of their powerful great generals would be dead meat. Bravery and battle prowess were a trait of the ancient tribe. However, a strong desire to survive was also a trait of the ancient tribe. The two did not clash. The desolate race army retreated like a receding tide. Kuan-Gu looked on at the fleeing army, and the flames of battle were immediately ignited in his heart as he bowed with an extremely respectful expression. Senior, the ancient tribe great general has been killed, and the morale of the army is very shaky, so it's time to retaliate. Why don't you lead us and eat this entire army? Guide you? And Lin looked at Kuan-Gu with a perplexed expression. It was as if two people were taking a stroll in the wilderness when a general suddenly ran over and asked him to lead 100,000 soldiers to destroy the enemy's army. What the hell does this have to do with me? Su Xiaolan couldn't help but roll her eyes. And Lin rejected coldly. I'm not going. Your war has nothing to do with me. This. Kuan-Gu's eyes widened as he asked carefully, Senior, aren't you an old acquaintance of Master Azure Dragon? Defeating the ancient desolate race now is the best way. He had already envisioned the entire sequence of events in his mind. And Lin was definitely a god of creation stage mighty figure who had a good relationship with Master Azure Dragon, which was why he was able to strike at such a critical juncture in the war. And Lin blinked. I only attacked that ape and that spider because they were insulting me and Xiaolan. What does that have to do with you, Azure Dragon? Kuan-Gu and his entourage were instantly struck dumb upon hearing this. Kuan-Gu suddenly recalled the scene wherein Lin and Su Xiaolan had descended upon this world, and an extremely absurd thought welled up in his mind. Could it be that you two, we just happened to be passing by? And Lin replied, Kuan-Gu, Ice and Frost Dragon. All of the Dragon Tribe living beings recalled what the ancient divine ape had said to Enlin and Su Xiaolan. So, Enlin and Su Xiaolan really had nothing to do with Master Azure Dragon, which meant that the ancient divine ape had died because of its foul mouth. Not only that, but even the ancient tribe army of over 10 million had lost because of its foul mouth. For some reason, all of the 300,000 ice and frost dragons were struck by the urge to throw up blood. They had won this battle, but this was a F*** bystander who had casually slain their enemies for them. This wasn't even a victory for them. After all, even a victory required a teammate to carry it. And Lin wasn't even their teammate. This was a very complicated feeling. Ha! Ha! Kuan-Gu suddenly chortled with mirth. This is fate. Master Azure Dragon is blessed by heaven and earth, and he is blessed by our tribe. And Lin was extremely displeased. He was the one who had attacked them. So what did this have to do with Azure Dragon? Speaking of which, could it be that the Master Azure Dragon that this Ice and Frost Dragon was referring to was one of the four holy beasts? The Ice and Frost Dragon was already at the Tao integration pinnacle stage, so it had to at least be a god of creation stage being to be referring to it as Master. That was very possible. and Lin couldn't help but turn his gaze toward his sea of vital energy. A series of rumbling sounds erupted from within his sea of vital energy. The little black dragon was ramming the space within his sea of vital energy with excitement, as if it was trying to open up a passageway. And Lin fell into deep thought. The stone door had probably teleported them to the holy beast Azure Dragon's territory, so it was most likely the little black dragon's idea as well. It looked like it was about to open up the passageway to the sea of vital energy. It was most likely trying to use the sea of vital Azure Dragon egg to reincarnate and escape. And Lin spoke from within his sea of vital energy. Senior Black Dragon, are you trying to get out of here? The little black dragon, howl, howl, howl. And Lin, it had become so small that it couldn't even speak. You can actually write it out in your sea of vital energy. And Lin replied with a serious expression. The little black dragon waved its hands through the air. Howl, howl, howl. And Lin was starting to doubt whether the little black dragon had any intelligence at all. It could clearly use countless methods to communicate with him, so why was it howling like that? And Lin didn't harbor any ill intentions toward the Azure Dragon. After all, the Azure Dragon had saved him several times during critical moments, so it was most likely using him as a means of reincarnation and not as a scheme to harm him. With his intelligence, no one would be able to harm him. Even if the Azure Dragon had other intentions, and Lin would be able to convince it otherwise. Thus, there was no need to worry about the Azure Dragon stirring up trouble. He first turned to Su Xiaolan and asked, Su Xiaolan, how are you feeling right now? Su Xiaolan pointed toward a certain direction in the sky. I can sense that the summoning is becoming clearer and more intense. It's coming from that place. And Lin's eyes sharpened, and he was immediately struck by a dilemma upon seeing the boundless sea of stars. There are tens of thousands of planets in the direction you're pointing toward, and the distance is measured in light years. There are simply too many planets to search in that direction. Kuan-Gu seemed to have seen in Lin's frustration, and he made his way toward Lin. Senior, are you not familiar with this realm of stars? That's all right. You can come with me to the main star of the Azure Dragon star system, the Huangquan star, and you can view the most detailed map of the realm of stars there. You can also use a large teleportation spell formation to teleport to any of the known planets. That way, you'll be able to drastically reduce the distance you have to travel. And Lin's eyes lit up. How could I? That's all right. You've saved our Ice and Frost Dragon tribe, and we've been looking for an opportunity to repay you. Please don't stand on ceremony, Senior. Even though Kuan-Gu was the most powerful being on the Ice Pole Star, he still had to humble himself. All right, then let's go to the Dragon Origin Star. And Lin nodded. The main star of the Azure Dragon star system? That was most likely the home of the little black dragon. And Lin couldn't help but look forward to it. Chapter 1882. On one of the three main planets of the ancient era, the Divine Emperor planet. This was a planet that looked like it had a yellow appearance. Layers of faint yellow energy revolved in the air above the planet, and from afar, it looked like a ring that was constantly rotating. A dark red formation encompassed an area with a radius of over 5,000 kilometers. There was a throne at the center of the formation, upon which sat a golden gorilla that was over 100 feet tall. Its muscles bulged into a series of small bumps, and the five-color divine light within them crashed into its muscles relentlessly. The bumps bulged and contracted as it breathed. There were 8 arms on its back, which spread out in a circular pattern like a flower bud. It could move freely, but it was frozen in mid-air like an inanimate object. A pure white streak of light suddenly approached from the distance. Boom! The immortal Vane Falcon landed on the ground and knelt down toward the golden gorilla on the throne. Beast King, bad news. A god of creation has interfered in our battle against the Azure Dragon tribe on the Ice Pole Star. A god of creation has interfered? Why are you the only one back? Where are the Black Abyss demonic spider and the ancient divine ape? The golden gorilla asked. There are 2 humanoid powerful beings, and one of them is suspected to be a god of creation. The ancient divine ape and the Black Abyss demonic spider have already been killed in an instant. If I had escaped any slower, I would have been killed as well. The immortal veined falcon trembled uncontrollably. Boom! A terrifying explosion of energy erupted forth. The rainbow energy within the golden gorilla's body soared into the sky, blanketing the entire sky. The anguished wails and agony of countless living beings were imbued within the dazzling rainbow energy, as if they were witnessing a dark red, depraved death rather than a beautiful rainbow. The ancient divine ape is dead. Good, very good. How dare you ignore the God of Creation treaty and kill my son? The golden gorilla stood up from the throne, and its 8 arms suddenly began to make a series of strange hand seals. Boundless divine light erupted from its hands before fusing into the earth below. The earth before it began to bulge, and rocks began to materialize into a massive being. Only Heavenly Monarch Shi Ling and Heavenly Monarch Bei Luo of the Spirit Tribe are Heavenly Monarch Shi Ling and Heavenly Monarch Bei Luo of the Spirit Tribe. Heavenly Monarch Shi Ling has already been sealed away, so the golden gorilla turned toward a certain direction with a sinister expression. Heavenly Monarch Bei Luo, even if you covet the Azure Dragon Heart essence, you don't have to target my son, do you? You're playing with fire. Boom, boom, boom. Around the earthy yellow planet, many golden arrays appeared. They connected with each other and amplified each other. Then, they released golden ripples that spread through the sky and earth. They spread for 100 miles, 1,000 miles, 10,000 miles, 100,000 miles, 1,000,000 miles from afar. One could see extremely turbulent spatial ripples in space, and then the huge earthy yellow planet began to slowly sink into the ripples, disappearing from its original position. Within the North Pole Palace of the spirit race, the man, whose body seemed to be made of piles of snow, suddenly opened his cold and frosty eyes and frowned slightly. I can't help but feel uneasy. Could it be that I'm about to run into trouble? Forget it, forget it. I'm just a heavenly monarch cultivating in the North Pole Palace. What kind of trouble can I encounter? The man shook his head and laughed. He continued to focus on cultivating the Ice Matriarch's cultivation method, on the Dragon Origin Star. Dazzling starlight erupted from the spatial formation constructed by the Azure Starlight Stone. A series of Dragon Tribe powerful beings exuding frosty auras appeared at the center of the formation. The frost dragon that was tens of thousands of feet in length also rose up into the air before flying toward the core region of the Dragon Origin Star, with a frosty gust of wind in its wake. And Lin and Su Xiaolan stood on the head of the ice and frost dragon and surveyed their surroundings with curiosity. The Dragon Origin Star wasn't as luxurious and prosperous as they had imagined. The environment was as beautiful as a celestial realm, and it was a cultivation planet with iridescent light and abundant vital energy. On the contrary, there were many extreme weather conditions here, and the sky was often filled with thunderclouds, and lightning would occasionally fall from the sky. The earth would occasionally churn and boil, and the weaker dragons could be scalded to death if they weren't careful. What surprised Lin and Su Xiaolan was that even in such a harsh environment, there were still countless Dragon Tribe powerful beings living on the Dragon Origin Star. And Lin used his God of Creation stage divine sense to scan the entire planet, and he estimated that there were over 10 million Dragon Tribe powerful beings, as well as about a dozen or so different species. One had to realize that the Dragon Tribe was extremely powerful, and their numbers were extremely rare. Even the Ice Pole Star, which was several times larger than Earth, only had a population of less than 1 million. It was already very astonishing that so many Dragon Tribe powerful beings could appear on a single planet at the same time. Kuan-Gu was very intelligent, and he immediately guessed what Lin was thinking from his expression. Senior, do you not know why our Azure Dragon Tribe established our main planet on the Dragon Origin Star? And Lin nodded in response. Kuan-Gu continued, there are countless descendants of the Azure Dragon bloodline in this vast realm of stars, but no matter who they are, their goal in cultivating is to make their bloodline more powerful and pure. And Lin was in complete agreement with this statement. Any existence with the bloodline of a divine beast, the more powerful its bloodline, the more promising and powerful it would be. Take Su Xiaolan, for example. She possessed the essential bloodline of the holy vermilion bird, and it could be said that her bloodline was the closest to that of the holy vermilion bird, which was why she was able to progress by leaps and bounds. However, in contrast to the descendants of holy beasts, she wasn't completely reliant on the vermilion bird bloodline. There was still a powerful true dragon bloodline within her body that was restricting and promoting the growth of the vermilion bird bloodline. The two of them complemented each other, and 1 + 1 = 11. Dual Divine Tao was no joke. It was a pioneering bug. You're saying that the Dragon Origin star has an advantage that can promote the cultivation of the Azure Dragon tribe's bloodline? Su Xiaolan quickly grasped the key point. Kuan-Gu chuckled. That's right. Our master Azure Dragon passed away on the Dragon Origin star. And not only is there the Dragon Tao Pond that can purify the Dragon tribe bloodline, there's also the Azure Dragon Heart Essence that represents the holy birth and contains the essential power of the universe. And Lin and Su Xiaolan's mouths gaped open in astonishment. Was it really okay for him to say such an important thing so straightforwardly? It's fine. All of the more powerful, mighty figures in the realm of stars know about this. So it's an open secret. A smile appeared on Kuan-Gu's face. May I ask where you're from, seniors? And Lin replied expressionlessly. We're from the Kuan-Su universe. Kuan-Gu's body shuddered. The Kuan-Su universe? Su Xiaolan, that's right. That's a very long story. And Lin's expression was extremely solemn, as if he could see through all of history. That place is extremely powerful, and we're the core disciples of a peerless, eternal Tao sect that ruled over the Kuan-Su universe. That place. And Lin turned to Kuan-Gu. There are 10,000 more people as bad *SS as me. Kuan-Gu's body shuddered, and he almost fell from the sky. Something like this was completely unheard of in the Outerverse. However, Kuan-Gu knew that Lin wasn't any of the most powerful beings he had ever seen. Now that such a powerful being had appeared out of nowhere, it was more or less acceptable that he was from another universe, a peerless eternal Tao sect that ruled over the Kuan-Su universe. Kuan-Gu was unable to repress his excitement, but he was also trembling uncontrollably, especially after learning that there were 10,000 beings like Lin in that place. What kind of Tao sect is that? Kuan-Gu couldn't help but ask, and Lin replied with a proud expression. The 4-9 Immortal Sect. Chapter 1883. 4-9 Immortal Sect? Kuan-Gu's expression faltered slightly before he murmured to himself. That's from the 50 Great Tao and 49 Heavenly Evolution, right? What a mighty sect. Just the name alone is extremely fitting for the great Tao of heaven and earth. You forgot to mention that the 4-9 Immortal Sect has another layer to it. The 50 Great Tao and 49 Heavenly Evolution. And Lin paused momentarily before adding, humans are one of them. Kuan-Gu's heart trembled slightly upon hearing this. Genius. Genius. Even though the human race isn't one of the 3 major tribes in the realm of stars, they still have their strengths. I've always felt that this race was quite extraordinary, but I didn't think that they would be so powerful in another universe. A knowing smile appeared on Lin's face upon hearing Kuan-Gu's flattery, and he didn't say anything else. All of a sudden, 2 powerful Tao integration stage true dragons flew toward them from a distance. One of them was a crimson true dragon with fiery clouds revolving around its body, and its claws were as dazzling as the scorching sun. The other was a slender, snowy white dragon with a pair of clear blue eyes, and a sea of clouds surged as it danced through the air. Kuan-Gu, is this the senior who defeated the ancient tribe army you were talking about? The white dragon's voice was as gentle as a big sister's, and anyone who heard it would instinctively lower their guard. That's right. This senior only managed to save our ice and frost dragon lineage through a series of coincidences. Kuan-Gu lowered his head in a respectful manner. He then turned to Lin and Su Xiaolan before making introductions. These 2 true dragons are 2 of the 3 guardian deities of our Huang Quan star, Master Qiyu and Master Bai Shui. And Lin detected their auras to find that they were both at the Tao integration pinnacle stage, and their bloodlines were extremely pure. Even though their cultivation bases were similar, they were most likely much more powerful than Kuan-gu. As such, Mr. and Lin is a friend of our Azure Dragon tribe, and we'll do our best to satisfy your requests. Bai Shui spoke in a gentle voice that was neither servile nor overbearing, which was completely different from Kuan-gu. Thank you, fellow Taoist Bai Shui. And Lin smiled. Our Azure Dragon race is known as a reclusive race, and our heritage is unimaginable to the average race. In terms of gathering information about the domain of stars, we definitely rank at the top among all the races and forces. And Lin and Su Xiaolan need not worry about that, Qiyu said in a deep voice that was filled with enthusiasm. They already knew why and Lin and Su Xiaolan had come, so they did not guard against them. Instead, they took the initiative to be friendly. Of course, it was also possible that this dragon origin star still had trump cards that Lin didn't know about, so they didn't have to be wary of Lin. Although the climate of the dragon origin star was harsh, it was very large. And Lin, Su Xiaolan, and the three true dragons traversed hundreds of thousands of miles before they arrived at a huge basin. The basin had a height difference of over 10,000 meters, and its width was over 30,000 kilometers. Within the basin were all types of protruding craters. There were lush forests that resembled seas, clear lakes that resembled mirrors, caves that resembled stars in the sky, and mighty roars could be heard echoing throughout the mountain ranges. Su Xiaolan's eyes narrowed with surprise. There's so many dragon tribe living beings here. There are over 1 million of them scattered throughout this basin. Is this a dragon nest? That's right. Not only is this a dragon nest, but it is also the core region of our Azure Dragon tribe. All of the dragons here are the most powerful dragons of our Azure Dragon tribe. A smile appeared on Bai Shui's face, and Lin unleashed his divine sense to assess the size of the dragon tribe living beings up ahead, upon which his expression shifted slightly. There were over 700,000 spirit-nurturing stage dragons, over 50,000 soul formation stage dragons, over 300 return to void stage dragon tri-mighty figures, and 13 Dao integration stage true dragons. Including Kuan-gu, Bai Shui, and Qiyu, there were a total of 16 Dao integration stage true dragons here. This kind of dragon tribe could easily crush the dragon court of the eastern seas. Even the western dragon tribe of the Tai Chu continent was like an infant compared to the holy beast Azure Dragon tribe. They were on completely different levels. Furthermore, one had to realize that this basin only consisted of the core powers of the Dragon Origin Star. What about the other powers on the Dragon Origin Star? Aside from the Dragon Origin Star, what about the other 17 stars? The entire Azure Dragon tribe probably had several dozen Dao integration stage super mighty figures and over 1,000 return to void stage super mighty figures. It had to be said that aside from the heaven-crushing sect, the Azure Dragon tribe was the most powerful force he had ever seen. And Lin was still situated at the center of the basin, where colorful clouds and mist swirled around, and he could sense some energy fluctuations that made even his heart palpitate. It was most likely because of something in there that allowed Bai Shui and Qiyu to interact with him so calmly, and even allow him into the core region of the Azure Dragon tribe to view the star map. As he drew closer and closer, Su Xiaolan suddenly harumphed lightly, and her bloodline began to stir restlessly as her eyes gradually took on a pure golden color. Exquisite dragon scales also began to appear on her snowy skin. Oh, so Ms. Su Xiaolan also possesses the dragon tribe bloodline? An expression of surprise appeared on Bai Shui's face. It is an extremely pure bloodline. She has successfully integrated the Dao integration stage. Qiyu waved his sharp claws as he exclaimed, "Is she a hybrid between a human and a dragon tribe cultivator? She has integrated the Dao of the true dragon as a human. This is the first time I've seen something like this." And Lin smiled and didn't say anything. If she knew that Su Xiaolan had integrated the Dao of the vermilion bird and the true dragon at the same time, she would probably be even more astonished. Bai Shui smiled. "Seeing as you possess the bloodline of true dragon and you're a Dao integration stage cultivator, then you're half a relative to us. We can open the Dragon Dao Pond for you." Dragon Dao Pond? A perplexed expression appeared on Su Xiaolan's face. "What's that?" Qi replied with a proud expression. "That's a holy land that the entire realm of stars yearns for. The water in the pond contains the paramount Tao intent of our dragon tribe. Legend has it that our patriarch Azure Dragon attained enlightenment in the Dragon Tao Pond and became the only holy birth. In principle, only Tao integration stage true dragons are allowed to enter the Dragon Tao Pond, and there's only one entry every 100 years, which means that within the Azure Dragon tribe, one would have to wait several thousand years before being allowed to enter the Dragon Tao Pond again. As for how much enlightenment they can attain, that would depend on their own abilities. You've saved the entire Ice and Frost Dragon tribe and killed two of our tribe's most powerful enemies. As such, in my capacity as the guardian deities of the Azure Dragon tribe, I can grant Ms. Su Xiaolan special permission to enter the Dragon Tao Pond." "That's fantastic. Thank you, Ms. Qiyu Ms. Bai Shui." Su Xiaolan was filled with elation upon hearing true dragon Qiyu's words. She had been lured here by the vermilion bird bloodline, and she didn't think that she would have the opportunity to attain enlightenment in the Tao of the true dragon first. And Lin looked silently at his sea of vital energy to find that the little black dragon was ramming itself even more ferociously, as if it were trying to break out of his sea of vital energy. Chapter 1884. The little black dragon's human-like desire was completely different from that of the other holy beasts. The holy flame vermilion bird was proud and unruly, while the little Xianwu and the little white tiger had no desire to go out. Only the little black dragon, who was the mastermind behind the opening of the Tai Chu continent, was relentlessly pounding into the sea of vital energy. And Lin was very interested in what the little black dragon was doing. He didn't know if going to the Dragon Origin Star would help the little black dragon break free, but it would be best if he could free the little black dragon from his body. After all, he didn't want to conceive a little black dragon in his body. The colorful cloud and mist was an illusion formation, and Lin and Su Xiaolan followed Kuan-Gu and the others as the colorful cloud and mist parted. Soon, a strange world appeared in front of them. The sky was clear, and there were massive trees that were like massive pillars supporting the heavens. A series of powerful dragon tribe living beings circled in the sky, inhaling clouds and exhaling mist. A shimmering golden true dragon descended from the sky, bringing with it a vast expanse of clouds and boundless divine light. It bowed to everyone with an extremely respectful expression. "Esteemed Bai Shui, Qiyu, guardian god, why have you summoned me?" "Shengjin, I want to take this human woman into the Dragon Tao Pond," Qiyu said as he pointed at Su Xiaolan. "You want to take a human woman into the Dragon Tao Pond?" The golden dragon's expression shifted as he stared at Su Xiaolan with a perplexed expression. "She has the aura of our dragon tribe, but she's only a human. From a bloodline perspective, she doesn't have a right to—" "Shut up," Bai Shui suddenly interjected. "You may be the manager of the Dragon Tao Pond, but don't forget that Master Azure Dragon is not here, so our guardian gods have the highest authority." Shengjin opened his mouth before closing in the end. He turned to look at Su Xiaolan with disdain and displeasure in his heart. Giving a once-in-a-century opportunity to enter the Dragon Tao Pond to a human with impure bloodline was an insult to the entire Azure Dragon tribe. There were countless ways to repay a debt of gratitude. Even if the other party had done the Azure Dragon tribe a debt of gratitude, there was no need to choose such a method to repay it, right? After Su Xiaolan entered the Dragon Tao Pond, it would be even funnier if she didn't attain any enlightenment or enhancements in her Tao realm. It would be the equivalent of wasting a super precious opportunity. With this in mind, Shengjin couldn't help but shake his head. He felt like the two guardian deities were getting worse and worse. To think that they would come up with such a stupid idea. The final guardian deity, the clear origin dragon, didn't even try to stop them. "Fellow Taoists, please follow us," Shengjin said to Enlin and Su Xiaolan. Even though he wasn't disgusted, he wasn't as polite as before. This was the Azure Dragon's lair, so even if the other party was a Genesis tier-level being, so what? The Azure Dragon naturally had the confidence to suppress him. Sheng Jin led Lin and the others forward. They encountered many powerful beings of the dragon tribe. They all bowed respectfully to Sheng Jin. Clearly, Sheng Jin had a very high status in the Azure Dragon tribe. Soon, they arrived at a large lake that was dark green like a gem. The lake was as vast as the ocean, and there was no end to it as far as the eye could see. The great sun hung high in the sky, piercing through the rainbow-colored clouds and casting its reflection on the lake. Unexpectedly, there were thousands of small suns, like golden jade plates, rippling with the blue waves, looking extremely magnificent and magnificent. Countless eastern dragons of different colors swam and frolicked in the lake, making it appear as if it were a massive swimming pool for the dragon tribe. The Dragon Dao Pond is located in the depths of this azure sun lake. Come with me. Sheng Jin rose into the sky like a WYRM, diving into the ocean. Kuan Gu, Qi Yu, and Bai Shui also rose into the air gracefully before diving into the lake. Lin and Su Xiaolan were more down to earth. They stood on the black brick and dove into the emerald lake without any hesitation, diving downward at a rapid speed. Su Xiaolan felt as if the blood in her entire body was surging, and she felt as if she had returned to a warm embrace. It was an extremely satisfying, comfortable, and safe feeling. She moaned softly. Lin turned toward the blushing Su Xiaolan with a surprised expression. Are you all right? I feel so good. Su Xiaolan spread open her arms and closed her eyes. Lin's expression was a little peculiar at the sight of Su Xiaolan. Are you sure you're all right? Su Xiaolan shook her head, and a vibrant blush appeared on her face as she replied in a mellow voice. I'm fine. I feel like I'm about to float. Lin's lips twitched upon hearing this. What did she mean by she was fine? No normal person would behave like this. Her words only made him even more concerned. Bai Shui immediately offered an explanation upon seeing Su Xiaolan's reaction. Su Xiaolan is acting like this because her bloodline has been influenced by the Dragon Dao Pond's Dao Realm True Intent, and she's slowly unleashing her bloodline instincts and desires. There's no need to panic. Lin was quite relieved to hear this. But all of a sudden, an exquisite and soft body pounced on him. Lin, hold on to me. The woman in the jade dress's cheeks were bright red, and she wrapped her arms around Lin's neck as she breathed into his ear with her soft, fragrant lips. Lin, what was going on? Was there really no need to panic? But he was so panicked. Lin's heart was surging with emotions, and he couldn't help but wrap his arms around the woman's soft body. At the same time, he turned to the white dragon with a confused expression. Ms. Bai Shui, what's going on? Didn't I tell you? Ms. Su Xiaolan has been influenced by the Dragon Dao Pond and is unleashing her desires. It looks like she's unleashing her love for you. A rare smile appeared on Bai Shui's face. Lin, Su Xiaolan murmured as her eyes gradually glazed over. What should I do? Lin couldn't take it anymore. His breathing began to accelerate as he stared at Su Xiaolan's curvaceous body, as well as the scorching heat emanating from her body. Su Xiaolan's figure was extremely good to begin with, and she pressed herself against Lin's body without any reservation as an intoxicating blush appeared on her face. She stared at Lin with an affectionate expression, as if she was waiting for something. The two of them were so close that they could even sense each other's breathing. Who could resist this? Lin could feel the desire in his body rising as well. However, he forcibly repressed it as he turned to the white dragon for help. She's currently in the process of releasing her bloodline, so it's not a good idea to forcibly repress it. It's best to let nature take its course. Bai Shui replied in a calm voice. So what should I do to relieve her of this state? Lin asked in an urgent voice. Bai Shui replied, It's very simple. Just shoot her. Lin. Chapter 1885. Lin's eyes widened as if he had misheard. What do you mean by having sex? Lin couldn't believe what he had just heard. The crimson dragon waved its little golden claws with a wide smile on its face. Ms. Su Xiaolan is expressing her love for you, so you naturally have to cater to her and satisfy her love for you. So what do you mean by having sex? We're about to reach the Dragon Dao Pond, and you don't have the right to enter the Dragon Dao pond. Hence, if you're going to do this, then do it now. We can wait for you here, Sheng Jin suggested. The four true dragons at the Dao integration pinnacle stage stared intently at Enlin and Su Xiaolan with their big, round eyes as they spoke. Staring, Enlin almost threw up a mouthful of blood upon hearing this. These four shameless true dragons were staring at him and asking him to do it right in front of them. Mr. Enlin, are you shy? Bai Shui asked in a sympathetic voice. Enlin's face convulsed slightly. What the F***CK was she talking about? Don't worry, Mr. Enlin. We won't feel anything when we watch you copulate, just like you watching us copulate. Chiyu chuckled. Enlin, so be it. Let's not disturb Senior Enlin. There's no point in watching two humans copulate, so let's give them some privacy. Kuan-gu was very respectful of Enlin's privacy. Now that you're done, you can pop this bubble. Sheng Jin spat out a colorful bubble, which hovered beside Enlin as he spoke. In the next second, the four true dragons swayed their tails and disappeared on the spot. Within the depths of the Azure Sun Lake, there was still a faint light here. Su Xiaolan's body was pressed tightly against Enlin's, and her snowy white skin was warm and soft, giving off the most primitive sense of temptation. It was impossible for Enlin not to have any reaction. But did he really have to do it with Xiaolan here? Although he really wanted to, and this was the right time, place, and people, even the big black brick could be used as a bed. Su Xiaolan's delicate red lips had already reached Enlin's mouth. Enlin's heart began to race. He knew that if he didn't make a decision now, he would be completely conquered. Xiaolan, I respect your decision, and I love you too. The divine halo of poison appeared above Enlin's head, and he pointed his finger at Su Xiaolan's abdomen. Dark green energy flowed from his fingertips into the woman's body. The divine ring of poison could poison the enemy. It could also remove all negative effects from the target. Sure enough, under the absolute power of the laws of nature, Su Xiaolan's scorching body temperature gradually receded, and her blurry eyes gradually became clear again. The green-clothed woman snorted lightly. Her face, which was originally a little rosy, suddenly turned red again. She shyly withdrew her legs and quickly took 2 steps back. That? I'm not. A warm smile appeared on Enlin's face. I know. If I want to spend the most beautiful night with you, I'll have to make sure that you're prepared. Su Xiaolan looked at Enlin, and tears welled up in her eyes. Enlin, you're the best. She knew that even if Enlin took her first time here, it would be a very natural thing to do, and everyone would understand her, including herself. However, Enlin still didn't do that. A bashful smile appeared on Enlin's face. After all, I'm so clear-headed, while you're so entranced by your bloodline. It's quite a weird combination. Su Xiaolan's eyes lit up, and she nodded. That's right. Our most wonderful first time has to be done while we're still clear-headed. Only then will the memory be strong enough. The two of them reached a consensus after experiencing a thrilling experience. They had to save the best night for their wedding. Bam! Enlin popped the colorful bubble. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Sheng Jin, Kuan-gu, Chiyu, and Bai Shui instantly appeared before Enlin, and they stared at Enlin and Su Xiaolan with astonishment on their faces. So fast. Mr. Enlin, how did you get here so fast? Chiyu was astonished. Slap. Bai Shui slapped Chiyu, flying for tens of thousands of meters with her tail. Ahem. Please don't take it to heart, Mr. Enlin. Chiyu is just an idiot. An awkward but polite smile appeared on Bai Shui's face. Ha! That's right. Kuan-gu tried to smooth things over. Dragons and humans move at different speeds, so it's not like we can use them as a reference. Su Xiaolan and Lin, I think you've misunderstood something. I cured Su Xiaolan of all of the negative effects in her body. And Lin explained with a serious expression. Yes, you're right. Can we go to the Dragon Dao Pond now? Kuan-gu hurriedly nodded in fear that Enlin would fly into a rage. Enlin's chest constricted upon hearing this. Looking at the dragons in front of him, they clearly didn't believe him. Su Xiaolan couldn't help but burst into laughter at the sight of Enlin's defeated expression. She was quite amused by this, but at the same time, she was also a little disappointed. In reality, she wouldn't have minded if Enlin had really lost control. Just then, why did he have to be so serious? There were no third wheels in the entire Azure Dragon Star system, so he didn't have to worry at all. Apparently, the first time was a little painful. If he could take advantage of the moment when his bloodline was expressing its love and desire, then it wouldn't hurt when they got married. Wouldn't that be even better? With that in mind, Su Xiaolan's thoughts began to wander, and a blush appeared on her face again. Qi Yu and Kuan Gu thought that Su Xiaolan was reminiscing about the past, and both of them began to chuckle like idiots upon seeing this. And Lin's heart was filled with despair upon seeing this. It was over. He wouldn't be able to clear his name even if he jumped into the Yellow River now. He gave up on struggling and arguing, and he continued to descend with the true dragons atop his brick. Not long after that, they arrived at the deepest part of the Azure Sun Lake. Boom! The water in the sky was reversed. All of a sudden, the Azure Sun Lake became the sky of this mystic realm, and there was a whole new world within it. This was an area with a radius of several hundred kilometers. There were countless shimmering treasures piled up into mountains on the ancient grayish-green earth, illuminating the entire space within this mystic realm. There were many peculiar and colorful totems carved into the ground. And Lin stared at these totems to discover that they were all dragon totems, and he could sense the aura of the laws of heaven and earth emanating from them. Countless iridescent lights lit up the entire mystic realm. The aura of dragons was extremely powerful, and the little black dragon within Enlin's body began to stir restlessly. An expression of enjoyment appeared on Su Xiaolan's face. This was clearly an extremely suitable place for the dragon tribe to live in. They continued onward until they arrived at a restriction that was emanating countless astonishing energy fluctuations. Sheng Jin pointed a claw at the restriction, and it became transparent, revealing the azure lake within. The lake was in the shape of a dragon, and the water at the mouth of the dragon was golden in color. It was as if an azure dragon were holding a dazzling dragon ball in its mouth. Sheng Jin pointed toward the golden lake. That's where the Dragon Dao Pond is located. Chapter 1886. Enlin looked at the pure golden liquid in the distance, and he could sense a boundless and ethereal Dao realm within it. It was unfathomable, yet paramount. He instinctively wanted to approach it, but he was stopped in his tracks by a burst of powerful dragon might. All beings without a dragon tribe bloodline will be kept out by the power of the Dragon Dao Pond. Please stay here, Mr. Enlin, Sheng Jin said in an indifferent voice. He knew that Su Xiaolan was a dragon hybrid, but Enlin had the aura of a human. Enlin hesitated momentarily, but he felt like it wasn't a bad idea to observe Su Xiaolan observe the Dao realm from afar, so he nodded and was just about to take a couple of steps back. At this moment, a burst of power suddenly surged from his body. The power of the Dragon Dao Pond was instantly melted away upon coming into contact with that burst of power. The pressure on Enlin's body suddenly disappeared, allowing him to continue onward without any resistance. This, Sheng Jin stared at Enlin with astonishment on his face. Wait, stop right there. You're a human. You can't approach the Dragon Dao Pond. Why? Enlin tilted his head to the side and splayed his hands open. You said that the Dragon Dao Pond would be able to keep me out, but that power has disappeared. Sheng Jin choked upon hearing this, and he opened his mouth to speak again in the end. But you're a human, Kuan Gu interjected with a serious expression. The Dragon Dao Pond doesn't have a rule that prohibits humans from entering. It doesn't reject Senior Enlin, so there must be a reason why it doesn't reject Senior Enlin. In other words, the Dragon Dao Pond has acknowledged Senior Enlin, so why can't Enlin approach the Dragon Dao Pond? As the manager of the Dragon Dao Pond, Sheng Jin was naturally aware of this. However, not only was the Dragon Dao Pond allowing a dragon hybrid to soak in, but it was also allowing an outsider to enter. Kuan Gu's words are reasonable. Let's just let nature take its course, Bai Shui said in an indifferent voice. Sheng Jin had no choice but to grit his teeth and acquiesce in Enlin's approach. If Master Azure Dragon was still alive, you wouldn't have the chance to make such a decision. Sheng Jin grumbled in a soft voice, clearly very displeased. Bai Shui and Qi Yu both heard Sheng Jin's words, but they pretended not to. Enlin was even more indifferent. In reality, the only reason why the Dragon Dao Pond didn't reject him was because of the little black dragon in his sea of vital energy. Su Xiaolan's bright eyes kept moving around Enlin's body. She blinked as if she was asking if Enlin was a little dragon person like her. Enlin looked back at Su Xiaolan and shook his head, indicating that it was fake. The two of them made their way to the Dragon Dao Pond. Enlin even had the illusion that he was looking at the dragon lake before him, and he felt as if he were looking at an eternal azure dragon stretching its body on the ground, as if it could break free from the ground at any moment and soar into the heavens. When they approached the golden lake, the ground suddenly surged, and two little azure dragons emerged from the ground before extending their heads. These two little azure dragons were several meters long and had golden dragon horns. Their scales glowed with azure light, and their entire bodies gave off an ethereal and transcendent aura. It was as if they did not belong to the mortal world, giving off an unfathomable feeling. And Lin's heart jolted with shock. These two little azure dragons were also powerful beings at the Dao integration pinnacle stage. Furthermore, they had managed to evade the detection of his divine sense, and he only discovered them now that they were approaching him. Elder Sheng Jin, another observer, has arrived? If I recall correctly, it hasn't even been 100 years since then. One of the little azure dragons had a male voice, and it spoke in a slow, mature voice. Sheng Jin bowed his head in a respectful manner. This is Ms. Su Xiaolan. Our tribe owes her a great debt of gratitude, so we opened the Dragon Dao Pond for her to observe in order to repay her for what she has done for us. Then what's going on with this human? Why did he come here? The female little azure dragon asked in a cold voice. The Dragon Dao Pond has no effect on him, so he came in. Sheng Jin gloated at Enlin. He was indeed unable to go against the decisions of the guardian deities, but these two azure dragons were descendants of Patriarch Azure Dragon. They had already reached the Dao integration pinnacle stage at such a young age, and they had limitless potential. They were the most likely god of creation stage dragons in the future. In terms of status, they were superior to the two guardian deities, Bai Shui and Qi Yu. If they were to pressure Enlin and the others, even the guardian deities wouldn't be able to defy them. Sheng Jin then turned to Enlin, and sure enough, he was greeted by the sight of a hint of shock and awkwardness on Enlin's face. Sheng Jin was quite elated to see this. Patriarch Azure Dragon was one of the most powerful beings even among gods of creation. His most powerful descendant was no ordinary being. Just the combined power of the two of them was enough to strike fear into the hearts of even weaker gods of creation. So Enlin had most likely been intimidated as well. Papa, Papa. Two voices suddenly interrupted Sheng Jin's reverie. The two little azure dragons swam around Enlin with elation while calling out a shocking name in their tender voices. Sheng Jin's mouth gaped open, and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Kuingu, Bai Shui, and Qi were also dumbstruck. Su Xiaolan was even more astonished. All of them stared blankly at the scenes unfolding before their eyes, and their minds went completely blank. Papa, the male azure dragon yelled. Papa, the female azure dragon yelled. Are you our father? The two azure dragons' eyes were glowing as they spoke to Enlin in an extremely intimate and fawning manner, completely devoid of their previous condescending attitudes. What's going on? Bai Shui was finally unable to maintain her composure, and her eyes widened in fear that her eyes were playing tricks on her. Master Azure Dragon, he's not your father. Your father departed after giving birth to you. Sheng Jin hurriedly tried to dissuade them with grief and indignation on his face. He had thought that the descendants of Master Azure Dragon would be able to crush Enlin and the others, but the two little azure dragons were calling him father? He didn't know whether Enlin had been intimidated, but Sheng Jin was definitely intimidated. What the hell was going on? Nonsense. This is clearly father's aura. The female, azure, dragon harumphed. Bloodlines don't lie. I can sense that his blood is thicker than water, the male, azure dragon argued. All of the dragon tribe, super mighty figures present were completely dumbstruck. Su Xiaolan turned to Enlin with a bewildered expression, as if to ask when did this happen. Xiaolan, I'm innocent in this matter. I'm still a virgin. Enlin almost threw up a mouthful of blood. He immediately turned toward his sea of vital energy, only to discover that the little black dragon was nodding with a benevolent expression. Chapter 1887. Enlin looked at the little black dragon's expression, then at the little azure dragons calling him daddy, and he was even more certain that this little black dragon was Patriarch Azure Dragon. I got it, Chiyu yelled before turning to Enlin with a scorching light in his eyes. Senior Enlin could be the reincarnation of our Patriarch Azure Dragon. Everyone was astonished upon hearing this. One astonishing statement, but it perfectly explained why Enlin was a father. The aura in the unseen world would not lie, and the two little azure dragons' brains were not damaged, so this was the only explanation. But didn't Senior Enlin tell me that he came from the 4-9 immortal sect of the Kuin-Su universe? Kuin-Gu spoke with a hesitant expression. Can he not? Chiyu asked with an excited expression. Can he? Kuin-Gu was a little dumbstruck. Have you seen him before? Chiyu asked. Kuin-Gu shook his head. No. How would you know if you haven't seen him before? Chiyu retorted. Kuin-Gu blinked. He felt like something was amiss. Why did Senior Enlin cross universes to come here? Wasn't it a summons from the heavens? This means that Master Azure Dragon wants to return to his homeland. This means that Master Azure Dragon is about to awaken. Chiyu became more and more excited as he spoke, as if he had discovered a new continent. Tears also welled up in Kuin-Gu's eyes upon hearing this. Among the 4 hidden holy races, only our Azure Dragon Patriarch has passed away, and his holy birth is incomplete. There has been no dragon to inherit it, and even the ancient tribe has been able to humiliate us. Is Azure Dragon Patriarch finally going to return? Patriarch, Chiyu bowed deeply. Patriarch, tears streamed down Kuin-Gu's face as he kowtowed as well. And Lin didn't even know what to say. Following on from the 2 little azure dragons, another dragon tribe super mighty figure was referring to him as Patriarch. Don't be so impulsive. Mr. Enlin hasn't been able to prove that he's an azure dragon, so why are you so impulsive? Sage Jean retorted with difficulty. Enlin turned to Sage Jean with a grateful expression. At such a critical time, it was the golden dragon who said something that made him feel better. Hearing this, Bai Shui sighed softly and said, both of Lord Azure Dragon's descendants have acknowledged Senior Enlin as their father. What else can we say? Papa, Daddy. The 2 little azure dragons were still shouting excitedly. Get lost. I'm not your father. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because your bloodline is pure and your cultivation is high. If you try to take advantage of me again, I'll beat you up. And Lin said with a black face. The male azure dragon's eyes immediately reddened. The female azure dragon began to sob softly. Golden Sage, forget about that. Let my little lawn soak in the hot spring first. And Lin took the initiative to change the topic. This isn't a hot spring. This is a dragon Dao pond. Sheng Jin's eyes widened as if something beautiful had just been sullied. Shut up. The male azure dragon suddenly yelled. If Daddy says this is a hot spring, then this is a hot spring, the female azure dragon said in a crisp voice. The paramount might of the dragon tribe bloodline instantly descended upon Sheng Jin, and he was struck by a sense of extreme pressure, to the point where even breathing became a little difficult. That's right. Even though the 2 little azure dragons had chosen to call Enlin their father, they were still Sheng Jin's papas. Sheng Jin's heart was filled with grief. What could he do? He was in complete despair. Daddy, is this the beauty who wants to soak in the hot spring? The female azure dragon turned to Su Xiaolan with a cautious expression. And Lin had already told her not to call him Papa, so why did she still insist on calling him Papa? Was she really that stubborn? That's right. She has the bloodline of the dragon tribe, so she wants to soak in the hot spring. And Lin nodded. Then she is... The male azure dragon was a little uneasy, and Lin immediately replied, "She is my Tao partner, Su Xiaolan." The male azure dragon and female azure dragon were both enlightened. Mama, Mama. The two little azure dragons circled around Su Xiaolan with excitement. Su Xiaolan and Lin Shengjin was struck by a rush of dizziness. Even Bai Shui, Kuing-gu, and the other dragons didn't know what to say. What had gotten into these two little azure dragons? Not only had they acknowledged a human as their papa, but now they were acknowledging a female dragon hybrid as their mother. Su Xiaolan's heart was also filled with a myriad of complex emotions. She was just in the midst of her shock at how Lin had become the father of two little azure dragons. But in the blink of an eye, she had also become the mother of two little azure dragons. Ahem. I'm going to soak in the Dragon Tao pond now. Su Xiaolan didn't know what to say, so she could only take care of business first. Go, Mama. The female azure dragon rubbed her head against Su Xiaolan's body in an affectionate manner. I'll protect Mama. The male azure dragon replied with a serious expression. A hint of anticipation welled up in Shengjin's heart at the sight of Su Xiaolan's reaction. Su Xiaolan was only a female dragon hybrid, so how could her Tao realm observation compare to that of pure-blooded dragons like them? If she couldn't attain anything from the Dragon Tao pond, even those two little azure dragons wouldn't be able to call her their mother without a second thought. What do I have to do? Su Xiaolan turned to Bai Shui. Bai Shui replied with a gentle smile. All you have to do is soak in the Dragon Tao pond and release your Dragon Tribe bloodline to fully accept the power of the Dragon Tao pond, then experience the intent realm of the Dragon Tao pond. Remember, when you feel like you can't take it anymore, you have to come back in time. Su Xiaolan nodded with an earnest expression before leaping into the Dragon Tao pond. Shengjin's eyes widened with anticipation as he stared at Su Xiaolan. If Su Xiaolan's bloodline wasn't compatible and she couldn't attain the Dragon Tribe Tao realm true intent, then she would soon be incinerated by the dragon water, and the pain would only be alleviated after she left the Dragon Tao pond. The longer one lasted in the Dragon Tao pond, the higher the probability of one's bloodline being purified and the greater the benefits one would reap. Kuing-gu could last about 10 minutes in the Dragon Tao pond. Shengjin could last 30 minutes in the Dragon Tao pond. Bai Shui and she could last about an hour in the Dragon Tao pond. And the two little azure dragons could last more than 2 hours. Shengjin chuckled coldly as he looked at Su Xiaolan in the Dragon Tao pond. He didn't know if this female dragon hybrid could last even a minute in the Dragon Tao pond. As soon as Su Xiaolan fell into the Dragon Tao pond, she felt as if she had fallen into the mouth of a boundlessly mighty being. Its body was a galaxy of stars, and its mouth was like a black hole. The Dragon Tribe bloodline within her body instantly began to churn. The Dragon Tao realm true intent also instantly surged into her mind like a tsunami wave. The Dragon Tao pond was imbued with extremely profound Dragon Tribe true intent that pointed directly to the most fundamental core of the Tao of dragons. Even though she had already gleaned a lot of Dragon Tribe true intent, she was instantly enlightened and enlightened. A pair of golden and jade-like dragon horns emerged from Su Xiaolan's head. Semi-translucent golden scales appeared over her snowy skin, and her eyes were as dazzling as the sun. A powerful dragon might erupted forth, and all of the surrounding Dragon Tribe super mighty figures were stunned. Su Xiaolan began to wholeheartedly accept the power of the Dragon Tao pond. Chapter 1888. Impossible. Isn't she a hybrid between a human and a dragon? How could she possess such a pure Dragon Tribe bloodline power? Shengjin was incredulous. Bai Shui, Kuing-gu, and she were also astonished. Oh, Mommy is so awesome, the male azure dragon said. That's our mommy. The female azure dragon was also elated. At this moment, the water in the entire Dragon Tao pond had begun to churn. An ancient dragon might crashed relentlessly into Su Xiaolan's body, making her grit her teeth as if she were enduring some kind of agony. and Lin knew that this was a bloodline enhancement process, but he was still a little distressed to see this. Su Xiaolan's true dragon bloodline was extremely pure in the first place, and it became even more powerful and more compatible with its essence after being cleansed by the Dragon Dao Pond. However, at the same time, she was in agony. The power of the dragon tribe in the Dragon Dao Pond was simply too powerful. No wonder they only allowed Dao integration stage true dragons to bathe in the pond. If an Eastern dragon below the Dao integration stage were to bathe in the pond, they would be crushed to death within a second. Su Xiaolan was in agony, but she could still hold on for a while longer. 1 minute passed. She was still holding on. Sheng Jin was a little disappointed. How could a mixed-blood dragon be able to hold on so long? 10 minutes passed. She was still holding on, and her aura was becoming more and more unfathomable. Sheng Jin's eyes widened. Kuan-gu sighed with emotion. To think that a mixed blood like her could last 10 minutes in the Dragon Dao Pond. She's already more powerful than most of the Dao integration stage true dragons in our Azure Dragon tribe. She's also reaping rewards at a rate discernible to the naked eye. Bai Shui could sense that the dragon might emanating from Su Xiaolan's body was becoming more and more pure and powerful. Even the direct descendants of the Azure Dragon tribe weren't this powerful. Before anyone knew it, 30 minutes passed. Su Xiaolan was still gritting her teeth, and her skin had already turned bright red from the golden liquid. Sheng Jin's expression was beginning to darken. Su Xiaolan was a mixed blood, yet she had lasted longer than its highest record. How is this possible? He was the manager of the Dragon Dao Pond. However, no matter how hard Sheng Jin tried to accept it, it was the truth. Su Xiaolan was still holding on. And Lin cheered her on from the side, giving her the strength of love. The power of love is not simple. Pain reduced by 50%. Perseverance increased by 50%. Su Xiaolan and Lin were true love. On the basis of the above, it had to be doubled. That's impossible. The water in the Dragon Dao Pond is formed from the most essential power of the Azure Dragon tribe. It's being enhanced by the power of the entire Dragon Origin Star. What's going on with her body? How can it last for so long? Won't it explode? Sheng Jin felt that everything that was happening was beyond his imagination. No one could answer its question. Kuan-gu and the other dragon's worldview had been completely flipped upside down. And Lin only had one thought in his mind. My wife is amazing. The two little Azure dragons were even more indifferent. They only had one thought in their mind. My mom is not bad. Time was still passing, and Su Xiaolan was still rapidly growing stronger. Unknowingly, an hour had passed. Su Xiaolan was still holding on. Qi Yu and Bai Shui were also beginning to lose their composure. They were the guardian deities of the Azure Dragon tribe. Their highest record was half an hour. Why were they being outclassed by a Dao integration intermediate stage half-dragon? Was Su Xiaolan about to ascend to the heavens? The Dragon Dao Pond only opens once every 100 years. Could it be that the power of the pond has decreased because it opened earlier this time? Qi Yu asked with difficulty. The male Azure Dragon replied in an indifferent voice. 96 years have passed since the last time it was opened, and less than 1% of the pond's power has been expended during each opening. So the power of the Dragon Dao Pond has only been weakened by a fraction of 1% at most. Qi Yu, Su Xiaolan's body trembled uncontrollably, but she gritted her teeth and persevered. Lin was a little concerned. Are you all right, Xiaolan? Just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Su Xiaolan said with difficulty. Just a little bit more? Lin asked. Su Xiaolan didn't say anything, but her blood was already churning at a rapid rate. She knew the source of her pain and what it was. The profound, true intent of the Dragon Dao Pond was not the source of her pain. What really hurt her body was the backlash from the rapid purification of the dragon race's bloodline and its rapid strengthening. If a normal dragon tribe cultivator were to face this backlash, they would have no choice but to persevere and leave the Dragon Dao Pond when they couldn't hold on any longer. After all, bloodlines were the most important thing to them. However, Su Xiaolan was different. She had a way to repress the backlash from her dragon tribe bloodline. The best way to repress bloodline backlash was to use another bloodline to repress it. That's right, the Vermilion Bird bloodline. She was at the Tao integration stage of both the Vermilion Bird and True Dragon bloodlines. So she was able to use the power of her Vermilion Bird bloodline to neutralize the backlash from her Dragon Tribe bloodline. The two bloodlines intertwined like yin and yang, and perfect harmony was finally achieved just as Su Xiaolan's pain was reaching its peak. Phew! Su Xiaolan let loose a loud cry before suddenly heaving a sigh of relief, as if a string of tension had been snapped, or as if she had just exhausted herself after an intense workout. And Lin was given a fright, and he immediately rose to his feet to rush over to save her. However, Su Xiaolan opened her dazzling eyes at this moment, and a soul-stirring smile appeared on her face as she shook her head in consolation at Lin. "Don't worry, I'm fine." She closed her eyes again as she spoke, and she continued to sense the Tao true intent within the Dragon Tao pond. How did she suddenly become so relaxed? Chi Yu's eyes widened upon seeing Su Xiaolan's expression. My God, she was smiling just now. She was actually smiling just now. Is she a demon? Kuan-Gu almost bit off his whiskers with excitement as he stared at Su Xiaolan in the Dragon Tao pond with astonishment etched on his face. Every single true dragon in the Dragon Tao pond felt like a year, even though it was extremely beneficial to one's bloodline and Tao realm observation. The pain that one had to endure was unimaginable. However, Su Xiaolan was smiling, and it wasn't a forced smile. Instead, it was an extremely relaxed smile, as if she had discovered a new continent. Not only were Kuan-Gu and Bai Shui astonished, but even the two little azure dragons' mouths gaped open in astonishment, as if they had just witnessed their mommy's exploits. As for the holy golden true dragon, it had already collapsed to the ground and was looking up at Su Xiaolan with reverence in its eyes. It had hoped that Su Xiaolan would make a fool of herself, but that had been completely forgotten. That smile had completely conquered its heart. Chapter 1889. Su Xiaolan's smile was enough to make all of the dragons bow down to her. And Lin was happy for Su Xiaolan. He was happy for a very simple reason. Su Xiaolan had been bathing in agony before, but now she was bathing in a relaxed manner. This was something to be happy about. As for how much more powerful she had become, that was secondary. His wife's comfort was the most important thing. It was quite clear that she had already found a comfortable position. Time was still ticking away. Su Xiaolan's aura was also climbing. Her true dragon bloodline, which had always been overshadowed by her Vermilion Bird bloodline, was becoming more and more powerful through the power of the Dragon Tao pond. This was what made Su Xiaolan very elated. In the past, she had embarked on an unprecedented dual Tao integration stage path with the Tao of the Vermilion Bird as the primary and the Tao of the True Dragon as the secondary. But now, even the Tao of the True Dragon, which had been suppressed for close to 100 years, was able to make a heroic declaration to the Vermilion Bird. I'll go up, you go down. That was rare, extremely rare. Su Xiaolan was not only looking forward to the dragon raising its head, but she was also looking forward to the dragon making a comeback. She had a feeling that the moment the dragon made a comeback would be the moment she made another breakthrough. 2 hours passed by in a flash. Su Xiaolan had set a new record for the two little azure dragons in the Dragon Tao pond. My God, where did this freak come from? Is she really only a half-blood? Why is she even more powerful than the most powerful, pure-blood, direct descendants of the azure dragon bloodline? Bai Shui let loose a cry of surprise. She's most likely a prodigy of the 4-9 immortal sect. That's an invincible sect that rules over the entire brilliant void universe, Kuan-Gu said with an expression of envy and yearning. Mommy is so awesome. The male azure dragon was extremely excited. Mommy, can you teach us how to bathe in the Dragon Tao hot spring without burning our bodies? The female green dragon lay on the ground with her claws scratching the ground. Her small green tail gently swayed. Her pair of large, bright eyes stared at the woman in the golden lake without blinking as she pleaded weakly. Su Xiaolan glanced at the two little azure dragons with a faint smile. Do you want to know? The two little azure dragons nodded frantically like chicks pecking at grains. Then ask your father. The woman smiled sweetly. The little azure dragon's eyes lit up, and it began to pester Enlin with all sorts of questions. Enlin instantly understood what Su Xiaolan was trying to do. She was trying to get rid of the annoying little azure dragon so that he could be the main force in the fight. This mission was very difficult, but Enlin gladly accepted it. He said with fervor and assurance, "To soak in a hot spring, you must first have the right attitude. You have to soak in the hot spring with a devout heart and see pain as the source of joy." The two little azure dragons could not help but nod, remembering Enlin's words as if they were sacred edicts. A few of the dragon tribe super mighty figures felt as if their hearts were about to explode. Could it be that these two azure dragons with limitless futures had been led astray by Enlin? What a worry! Unknowingly, another 2 hours had passed. Su Xiaolan was still soaking in the Dragon Dao pond. Furthermore, her expression hadn't changed much. Her cheeks were still flushed, and she appeared to be enjoying herself, as if she really were soaking in a normal hot spring. Is there an end to this? How long is she going to soak in a hot spring? Qi was in despair. Could it be that the effects of the Dragon Dao pond have changed? Bai Shui hesitated momentarily before breaking the rules and carefully dipping its little paw into the water. A sizzling sound immediately erupted from its paw, and it immediately retracted its paw as it let loose a cry of surprise. It's still the same formula. All of the dragons turned to look at Su Xiaolan with shock and astonishment. Ms. Su Xiaolan seems to have broken the record for the longest time in the Dragon Dao pond. Bai Shui murmured, "No, there's still one more record that she hasn't broken." Sheng Jin suddenly interjected, "That's right, there's still one more record that she hasn't broken." Koen Gu was also thinking of the mighty figure that was revered by all of the dragon tribe. She hasn't broken Patriarch Azure Dragon's record. Qi raised his head in a slow voice. Legend has it that Patriarch Azure Dragon spent an entire day and night in the Dragon Dao pond before successfully materializing the one and only holy birth. The great Dao of heaven and earth resonated in unison, and the bloodlines of billions of dragon tribe cultivators boiled in unison. He leaped into the air, and the seas surged as he transcended beyond the 9 heavens. This crimson true dragon had entered into bragging mode. Enlin listened to these grandiose descriptions, then looked at the little black dragon in his sea of vital energy, and he was struck by a strange sense of dissonance. How did such a mighty being become so adorably stupid? What followed next was a long wait. Su Xiaolan continued to set new records in the Dragon Dao pond. She had already become the most powerful being under Patriarch Azure Dragon. Bai Shui and the other dragons were suddenly getting a little panicked. What if Su Xiaolan broke Patriarch Azure Dragon's record? The record holder for the longest time in the Dragon Dao pond was not a member of the Azure Dragon tribe, but a half-dragon female. If the rest of the Azure Dragon tribe were to learn of this, the Azure Dragon tribe would be completely humiliated. Thus, all of the dragons looked on as Su Xiaolan continued to set new records. For hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, Su Xiaolan's expression remained unchanged. The only thing that had changed was that the dragon tribe bloodline aura that she was releasing had become more and more powerful. It had even surpassed Koen Gu, Sheng Jin, and the other dragons, and was approaching the most powerful guardians of the Azure Dragon tribe, Bai Shui and Qi Yu. After 20 hours, the dragon tribe bloodline aura released by Su Xiaolan had already surpassed that of Bai Shui and Qi Yu, and was progressing toward a more profound level. Qi Yu pulled on his whiskers with his claws and almost tore his entire face off. "My mother. She's only at the Dao integration intermediate stage. Her bloodline is so powerful. Is she trying to ascend to the heavens?" The two little azure dragons retorted with displeasure. "She's my mother, not your mother." Su Xiaolan's development had all of the dragons in awe and veneration. What the true dragons didn't notice was that a portion of the essence of the Dragon Dao pond was flowing from underground into Enlin's sea of vital energy, where it was absorbed by the little black dragon. The little black dragon's aura became more and more powerful. The two little azure dragons seemed to have sensed something, and they began to circle around Lin again. Soon, an entire day and night had passed. Su Xiaolan had broken Patriarch Azure Dragon's record, but she was still observing. No one could stop Su Xiaolan now. Qiyu heaved a faint sigh. She's breaking her own record and creating history for the Azure Dragon tribe. Kuan-Gu was extremely excited. Have you noticed that the golden liquid in the Dragon Dao pond doesn't seem to be as dark as before? Bai Shui suddenly asked. All of the dragons drew a sharp intake of breath upon recalling what it had looked like in the past. It's over. The Dragon Dao pond probably won't be able to recover even after 10,000 years. I'm afraid that the Dragon Dao pond is going to be sucked dry by Su Xiaolan. All of the dragons were starting to panic. At this moment, Su Xiaolan had already opened her eyes, and a light cry escaped her mouth. This cry was imbued with the purest Tao of dragons, and it spread throughout the entire Azure Sun Lake before spreading throughout heaven and earth, resonating with the entire dragon origin star. This is... Bai Shui's expression shifted drastically. Qiyu immediately stood up. The dragon origin star has acknowledged Ms. Su Xiaolan. The fact that the entire dragon origin star was resonating with Su Xiaolan meant that she had the right to become the guardian deity of the Azure Dragon tribe. Kachaboom! An even more terrifying aura erupted violently. Vital energy surged violently, and the great Tao of heaven and earth began to resonate with her. Su Xiaolan leaped out of the Dragon Dao pond. An azure divine light surged for over 100,000 kilometers as a boundless azure dragon projection rose into the sky, manifesting the divine might of the true dragon. Su Xiaolan's aura began to climb rapidly. She was finally going to make a breakthrough. Chapter 1890. In the deepest part of the dragon origin star, a pair of sun-like eyes slowly opened. Oh, the dragon origin star has acknowledged a hybrid human? Not simple at all. I really want to see what kind of prodigy is here. It spoke in an ethereal voice. Then, a regretful sigh was heard again. It's a pity that I haven't refined the Azure Dragon Heart essence to become the only holy birth. On the main star of the Azure Dragon tribe, the Dragon Origin Star, a gargantuan azure dragon projection hovered in the sky, obscuring the light of the sun as it exuded an extremely pure and boundless dragon might. Close to 10 million Dragon Tribe living beings looked up at the projection in the sky with scorching reverence and reverence. Dragons soar into the heavens. The Dragon Origin Star is ringing. This is a sign that a guardian divine dragon has appeared. I wonder which Tao integration stage true dragon has made a breakthrough. This is a joyous occasion that deserves to be announced to the entire tribe. The ancient tribe is closing in on us, and now that another top-rate true dragon has appeared in our Azure Dragon tribe, our morale will be greatly boosted. All of the Azure Dragon tribe living beings were ecstatic, and they either danced on the spot or bowed to the projection in the sky, offering their sincerest blessings. Su Xiaolan was drawn into the air by a peculiar power. Lin and the others immediately followed along. Su Xiaolan passed through the Azure Sun Lake and appeared before all of the Dragon Tribe living beings. Her entire body was bathed in divine light, and she was like a goddess who had descended from the heavens. The Azure Dragon projection in the sky let loose a roar upon seeing Su Xiaolan before possessing her body and injecting the power of a star into her body. All of the Dragon Tribe living beings were dumbstruck. They were astonished to discover that the super mighty figure who had made a breakthrough and received the acknowledgement of the Dragon Origin Star was not a true dragon of the Azure Dragon tribe. And Lin didn't know what to say at the sight of the woman who had shocked the entire world with just her breakthrough. Even he didn't understand how fast Xiaolan was progressing. He had finally reached the return to Void Pinnacle stage, but Xiaolan was already at the Dao Integration Pinnacle stage. Ever since she obtained the essential bloodline of the Vermilion Bird, her cultivation base had skyrocketed. First, her bloodline was invincible, and she had to rely on her cultivation base to support herself. Then, she received the acknowledgement of the vermilion bird and perfected her own Tao. Finally, she underwent the unimaginable Tao integration stage, and she had succeeded in everything. After that, Tina's divine mirror world was upgraded, and she gave the fortune and enlightenment of her divine mirror world to Xiaolan, thereby allowing her to progress to the Tao integration intermediate stage. Do you think this is the end? No. Less than a year later, Xiaolan was summoned to the realm of stars by the vermilion bird bloodline in her body, where she entered the Dragon Tao Pond and successfully progressed to the Tao integration pinnacle stage. Now that Enlin thought about it, he was beginning to wonder if Xiaolan had taken on the role of a main character. Her experiences along the way could be described as legendary and incredible. Right before the envious eyes of countless dragons, Su Xiaolan completed the final step of her breakthrough. Regardless of whether it was her Tao realm or her bloodline, she had reached a level that none of the Azure Dragon tribe would even dare to imagine. So powerful, the male Azure Dragon exclaimed. "Mommy is so scary." The female Azure Dragon was already trembling uncontrollably as she hid behind Enlin. "She's so beautiful and perfect. Don't you have an eye for beauty?" Enlin scolded in a stern voice. In the sky above, Su Xiaolan seemed to have heard Enlin's words, and a gorgeous smile appeared on Enlin's face. This smile made Enlin fall into a daze. So beautiful, after reaching the Tao integration pinnacle stage, Su Xiaolan's disposition had become more and more exceptional. The power of her bloodline struck a sense of pressure upon all of the dragons present, but Enlin didn't feel anything. All he felt was that this woman was extremely beautiful. Even the golden dragon horns on her head were as perfect as works of art. Slap! Su Xiaolan abruptly slapped the dragon horns on her head. Thus, the dragon horns were slapped back in her head. Enlin. Su Xiaolan flew over to Enlin with her hands clasped behind her back and a vibrant smile on her face. "You don't actually have to hide your dragon horns like this. I don't mind. You're quite beautiful even with dragon horns." Enlin couldn't help but grumble. Su Xiaolan blinked before patting Enlin's head with a vibrant smile. "I'll release my dragon horns when you grow them. Right now, I just want to be human." Enlin couldn't help but feel like this was a little strange. At this moment, Kuan-gu, Chi-yu by Shui, Shang-jin, and the two little Azure Dragons all flew over to offer warm congratulations. Some of them were even asking Su Xiaolan some questions. In terms of cultivation base, Su Xiaolan was already at the Tao integration pinnacle stage. In terms of status, she was already the guardian deity of the Azure Dragon tribe. And in terms of bloodline, she was superior to Chi-yu and Bai Shui, so she really did have the right to be consulted by all of the dragons present. After a series of Tao discussions, all of the dragons had benefited immensely, and they expressed their gratitude again. The two little Azure Dragons were even lamenting why their mother was so powerful while they were so useless. Su Xiaolan bluntly stated that the two little Azure Dragons weren't her biological children, so there was no such thing as hereditary badassery. The two little Azure Dragons instantly burst into tears. Chi stepped forward with an Azure Jade pendant in his hand. "Grandmother Su Xiaolan, you're already our dragon origin stars. Wait." Su Xiaolan interjected. Chi faltered slightly upon hearing this. "What is it? What did you just call me?" Su Xiaolan asked in a cold voice. "Oh, I said Divine Dragon Maiden Lawn." Chi replied with a serious expression. Su Xiaolan nodded with a pleased expression. "Go on. You've already been acknowledged by the Dragon Origin Star as the fourth guardian deity of the Dragon Origin Star. This is a token of the guardian deity, and it's crafted from the Dragon Origin Star star core. It's extremely useful, and I'll give it to you now." Chi-yu handed an azure jade pendant with a dragon engraved on it to Su Xiaolan. Su Xiaolan accepted the jade pendant, and she could sense the extremely vast and pure power of dragons emanating from it. She didn't act pretentious and accepted the jade pendant readily. She smiled and said, "What do you need me to do to become your guardian?" Chi-yu shook his head. "There's no mandatory requirement. However, I hope you won't forget what you've received today, and I hope you can lend the Azure Dragon tribe a helping hand when it is in peril." "No problem. Su Xiaolan nodded without any hesitation. She was a grateful person, and everything she had received now was related to the Azure Dragon tribe. She didn't detest the Azure Dragon tribe living beings here. On the contrary, she found them to be quite adorable and understanding. It wouldn't be an issue for her to help them when it was within her power to do so. By the way, you said Xiaolan is the fourth guardian deity. So who's the other guardian deity? Lin asked. A hint of veneration appeared on Chi Yu's face upon hearing this. He's the most powerful being in our Azure Dragon tribe, Master Clear Origin Dragon. A scorching light appeared in Bai Shue's eyes. Master Clear Origin Dragon is currently refining the Azure Dragon Heart Essence in an attempt to inherit Patriarch Azure Dragon's holy birth, so he won't be able to meet you for the time being. Upon hearing Bai Shue's words, the little black dragon within his sea of vital energy began to pound against his sea of vital energy and even higher frequency. Its emotions were extremely unstable. Could it be that the little black dragon's escape had something to do with the Azure Dragon Heart Essence? I'm very curious about the Azure Dragon Heart Essence. Can you take me to see what it looks like? Lin asked with a gentle smile. Chapter 1891. Well, a hesitant expression appeared on Bai Shue's face. A smile appeared on Chi Yu's face. Being acknowledged by the Dragon Origin Star proves that Ms. Su Xiaolan is harmless. Furthermore, Lin is being courted by the descendants of the two Azure Dragons, so it's clear that they bear no ill will toward him. Let's just let them look at him from afar. This was also the reason why they were willing to share so much information with Lin and the others. Bai Shue thought about this momentarily before nodding. Lin suddenly thought of something, and he asked, Xiaolan, do you want to continue bathing in the hot spring? We can go after bathing in the hot spring. Sheng Jin's body almost caved in upon hearing this. Please let the dragon Dao Pan go. Look at how badly it's been sucked dry by you. If you keep this up, it's going to be crippled. A faint smile appeared on Su Xiaolan's face. Why are you so nervous? I won't go there again. In reality, my observation of the Tao of the true dragon has already been perfected, and my bloodline has also become extremely powerful, so there's no point in bathing in the dragon Dao Pond again. The dragons heaved a sigh of relief when they heard that, looking as if they had just survived a disaster. With the approval of the two guardian deities, Lin and Su Xiaolan embarked on a joyous journey to visit the Azure Dragon Heart Essence. Kuan-Gu and Sheng Jin followed along behind them like little brothers. The two little Azure Dragons also followed along and stubbornly called Lin and Su Xiaolan Daddy and Mommy. Lin didn't chase them away. As a matter of fact, walking hand in hand with Xiaolan and having two kids call him Daddy Mommy was quite a wonderful feeling. It gave him a unique sense of warmth. Lin and Su Xiaolan traveled with the two guardian deities, and they encountered many dragon tribe living beings along the way. They were initially only respectful toward the guardian deities, but now they were also respectful towards Su Xiaolan. It was quite clear that Su Xiaolan's status in the Azure Dragon tribe had improved significantly. Soon, they flew out of the basin and entered the vast land below. They passed through one terrifying danger zone after another, advancing toward the depths of the Dragon Origin Star. In a place with colorful fog as the sky, lightning as the sea, and dragon balls as the sun, Lin saw a very spectacular building. The exterior of the building was in the shape of an azure dragon soaring from the sea of lightning. It was tens of thousands of feet tall, and it was extremely domineering and arrogant. It was as if it would tear the sky into pieces in the next second. The Azure Dragon Heart Essence is located at the head of the building, Bai Shue said. Then, all the true dragons shrank their bodies to the size of the little azure dragon. Bai Shue called out to the huge building in the distance. Guardian Goddess Bai Shue. Qiyu, Guardian God Qiyu. Request to enter the Azure Dragon Divine Temple to view the Azure Dragon Heart Essence. The voices of the two true dragons at the Tao Integration Pinnacle stage reverberated throughout heaven and earth, and even the roars of the Sea of Lightning were forcibly drowned out. Rumble at the top of the Azure Dragon building, at the dragon's chin, the bronze door slowly opened. Bai Shue swept her tail and slowly flew into the bronze gate. And Lin could sense that the little black dragon within his body was ramming itself even more vigorously, and it was very excited to come out. Sigh, you stupid dragon, you've just absorbed the power of the dragon Doubtful for an entire day and night, but you still can't come out. If you still can't come out when you're close to the Azure Dragon Heart Essence, then I'm going to leave you be. And Lin spoke with a resigned expression. The little black dragon seemed to be unable to hear Lin's words and was still ramming itself into Lin's sea of vital energy. This kind of willpower was even more badass than the foolish old man who moved a mountain. It wouldn't give up until it destroyed Lin's sea of vital energy. And Lin looked on with a cold expression, as if it wasn't his sea of vital energy that was being rammed into. It wasn't that Lin was trying to prevent it from coming out. In reality, Lin really wanted to get this black dragon out. However, he didn't know how to open his sea of vital energy either. This thing wasn't like in Kirin, who was something that belonged to him and could come and go as he pleased. This thing was most likely a living being that had been transferred into his sea of vital energy through a special reincarnation technique before trapping itself there. And Lin made his way through the bronze gate with curiosity and anticipation in his eyes. Hopefully, the Azure Dragon Heart Essence would be of some help to the little black dragon. After passing through the bronze gate, Lin was greeted by the sight of a palace that was burning with white dragon flames. There was a small platform at the center of the palace, upon which was a translucent, milky white bead. Lin entered the palace, only to discover that the ramming within his sea of vital energy was 10 times more violent than before. The little black dragon rammed itself into the invisible barrier, and its head was bleeding profusely, but it was still ramming itself with all its might. Holy F***CK. Had this dragon gone insane? And Lin's expression shifted drastically, and right at this moment, a peculiar burst of pain surged through his sea of vital energy. My God! Ow! Ow! And Lin clenched his teeth as he clutched his lower abdomen. Su Xiaolan immediately discovered that something was amiss, and she extended a hand to support Lin. And Lin, what's wrong? What happened? Papa, father, are you all right? The little Azure Dragon and the other dragons also turned to look at Lin. I'm fine. And Lin clutched his dantian with his brows tightly furrowed. My stomach isn't feeling very well, so I'll be fine after drinking some warm water. Su Xiaolan, all the dragons, you're a god of creation stage mighty figure with a weak stomach? Who are you trying to fool? Let's take a look at the Azure Dragon Heart Essence. And Lin urged. This was the first time he had experienced pain in his sea of vital energy. He felt as if his entire body was about to explode from his dantian, threatening to tear his body apart. Right at this moment, he finally understood what the little black dragon was trying to convey to him. The little black dragon wanted to see the Azure Dragon Heart Essence. It was so close to the Azure Dragon Heart Essence, yet it couldn't see it at all, and it was on the verge of going berserk, which was why it was crashing into Lin's sea of vital energy in a frenzy. Quick, let me see the Azure Dragon Heart Essence. And Lin gritted his teeth as he urged again. The pain was only temporary. The little black dragon will be able to calm down as long as it could see the Azure Dragon Heart Essence. Don't worry, it won't be long. Let's enter the Dragon Seeking Navigation System first. Bai Shui urged. What Dragon Seeking Navigation System? And Lin faltered upon hearing this. Su Xiaolan stroked Lin's back, using her warm energy to alleviate Lin's pain. However, this pain was extremely excruciating, and it was not something that could be alleviated by external forces. The Dragon Seeking Navigation System is the paramount system of our Azure Dragon tribe. Only with its guidance can we see the Azure Dragon Heart Essence. Kuangu puffed out his chest with a proud expression at the mention of the Dragon Seeking Navigation System. I don't care about that. I'm just asking if you can hurry up. And Lin clutched his lower abdomen and panted heavily with cold sweat pouring down his face. Su Xiaolan was also quite concerned at the sight of Lin. Lin, I can't help but feel like you're in a certain human state. What state? Lin asked. The state a pregnant woman is in when she's having a difficult labor Su Xiaolan replied. Lin, difficult labor? The male azure dragon's nostrils widened in shock. Wah wah wah. Daddy is going to have a baby. The female azure dragon yelled with elation. Is it going to be a little brother or a little sister? The female azure dragon made her way over to Lin with curiosity and anticipation on her face. Lin, piss off. Chapter 1892. Lin was extremely anxious. To be exact, he was both in pain and impatience. Was this really like a pregnant woman having a difficult labor? Wait a minute. If the sea of vital energy was a uterus and the little black dragon was a child, wasn't Lin having a F** difficult labor? The little black dragon just couldn't get out of the sea of vital energy, and it was an excruciating pain. Wasn't this the pain of a child trying to squeeze its way out of the sea of vital energy? And Lin was getting more and more frustrated as he thought about this. I'm a F** man. Why do I have to go through all this? Ms. Bai Shui, can you hurry up? And Lin can't wait any longer, Su Xiaolan urged. Bai Shui and the other dragons didn't understand what Lin's difficult labor had to do with seeing the Azure Dragon Heart essence. They couldn't be bothered to ask, and they immediately carried out the procedure. Bai Shui swept her claws through the air to shatter the white bead at the center. A little white dragon with 4 dragon balls in each of its claws appeared before everyone. An extremely friendly smile appeared on its face as it spoke in a crisp voice. Welcome to the Dragon Seeking Navigation System. I am your beloved customer service representative, Little White. What can I do for you? Was this the Dragon Seeking Navigation System that the Azure Dragon tribe was so proud of? Lin immediately raised a hand. Me. I need to see the Azure Dragon Heart essence. Time was of the essence, and Lin had to calm the little black dragon down as quickly as possible. The little white dragon ignored Lin's words and tossed out 7 dragon balls in an unhurried manner. For normal services, please rub the first dragon ball. For members, please rub the second dragon ball. For annual members, please rub the 3rd dragon ball. For super members, please rub the 4th dragon ball. For super members, please rub the 5th dragon ball. For happy members, please rub the 6th dragon ball. For dragon god members, please rub the 7th dragon ball. And Lin's expression faltered upon hearing this. What the hell? Bai Shui explained with a smile. These are the service levels of our Dragon Seeking Navigation System. Different levels correspond to different services. Advanced, right? Bam, bam, bam. The little black dragon's fierce collision caused Lin's entire body to twitch in pain. Can you hurry up? And Lin said with difficulty. It's all right, Mr. Lin. We're the highest level members, and we'll enjoy the best service. Bai Shui said proudly. When Lin heard this, his heart was filled with hope. He prayed that he could quickly skip this boring process. I'm a Shinra member. Bai Shui stepped forward and fiercely rubbed Dragon Ball number 7 with her claws. Crunch, crunch. And Lin clutched his stomach and stared at the white dragon in front of him. Faster, faster, faster. Little white dragon twisted its butt and suddenly said with a disappointed expression, Unfortunately, the service standard is based on the lowest level members among you. Your current service level is the lowest level, normal service. And Lin, the dragons, it can check our level by itself. Why does it still want us to rub Dragon Balls? Su Xiaolan was speechless. Whatever. Normal service is normal service. Can you hurry up? And Lin clutched his stomach. His face had already turned pale. The little white dragon said in a friendly voice, I give up on service. Please rub ball number 1. Please top up to upgrade your membership level. Please rub ball number 2. Please continue with normal service. And Lin abruptly stood up and rubbed the number 3 ball in a frenzy. Normal service it is. Hurry the F***CK up. Don't waste my time. Rub ball number 7. The little white dragon paused. There's an error. Please try again. Bam. The little white dragon exploded. A milky white dragon ball reappeared on the platform. The air suddenly fell silent. And Lin, Su Xiaolan, Mr. Lin, you have to calm down. You have to follow the instructions of our Dragon Seeking Navigation System step by step. You can't make any mistakes. Only then will you be able to achieve your objective, Chiyu persuaded. Unlin, Su Xiaolan asked in an urgent voice, is it convenient to top up to become a member? What's the difference between normal service and membership service? Can I see the Azure Dragonheart essence? Bai Shui explained patiently. You'll have to go to the runic stone tablet to top up your membership fee. Mr. Enlin isn't a member of the Azure Dragon tribe, so it's a bit more troublesome to do so. As for whether we can see the Azure Dragonheart essence, that's our prerogative and has nothing to do with the membership. So please rest assured, Guardian Goddess Yaolan. Can you hurry up? Enlin clutched his stomach. The little black dragon was becoming more and more tyrannical. Bam! The Dragon Ball on the platform suddenly exploded. It was Su Xiaolan. The Dragon Ball exploded. A little white dragon with Dragon Balls in each of its paws appeared before everyone again. An extremely friendly smile appeared on its face as it spoke in a crisp voice. Welcome to the Dragon Seeking Navigation System. I am your beloved customer service representative, Little White. What can I do for you? I need to see the Azure Dragonheart essence. Su Xiaolan replied. The little white dragon tossed out 7 Dragon Balls before speaking in a friendly voice. For normal service, please rub the first Dragon Ball. For members, whoosh. Before it had a chance to finish its sentence, Su Xiaolan's hands transformed into a series of afterimages as she rubbed the Dragon Ball in a furious manner. Enlin was gripping his stomach in pain, but he was very relieved to see this. As expected, Xiaolan was the most reliable. His happiness was in her hands. I'll transfer you to normal service now. The little white dragon's voice suddenly became cold. Hello, what do you need? A smug smile appeared on Chiyu's face. See, this little white dragon has intelligence, right? Even its expression and tone are so realistic. Enlin, I don't know what you're so proud of. I need to see the Azure Dragonheart essence, Su Xiaolan said in a patient manner. All right, do you want to participate in the Azure Dragonheart essence? The little white dragon looked around at all of the other dragons. After verification, all of you have the right to see the Azure Dragonheart essence, and Lin was almost moved to tears. That's great. Finally. However, you're not members, so you'll have to advertise first, the little white dragon said as it twisted its hips. What? Su Xiaolan faltered slightly upon hearing this. And Lin, the muscles on the little white dragon's back suddenly bulged, and its 4 arms also became extremely thick and powerful. Do you want to be a male dragon, like me? Do you want to indulge in sensual pleasures every night, like me? Do you want to be a female dragon who cries in anguish under your body, like me? If you want to be a male dragon, then be a true male dragon. Choose once, and you'll be blessed for the rest of your life. Welcome to the Dawn Dragon Medical Clinic. She's good, and you're good. Ow, ow. And Lin looked at the little white dragon, and he suddenly had the urge to kill it. Is it over? Su Xiaolan was also very anxious, but she knew that she couldn't afford to panic. The little white dragon's expression suddenly shifted, and the background music began to play. It was as if there were mountains of corpses and seas of blood all around them, and earth-shattering battle cries rang out incessantly. And Lin was given a fright, and his features paled as he asked in a feeble voice, What's going on? The little white dragon was extremely enthusiastic. Good. I'm a trash dragon. I can recycle my equipment and trade freely. If you're my brother, then come and kill me. Su Xiaolan, and Lin was frothing at the mouth. Chapter 1893. The little white dragon kept on talking about the advertisements. The little black dragon rammed into the barrier in a frenzy. And Lin's body and mind were being ravaged by the 2 dragons. Su Xiaolan stroked in Lin's back as she waited for the advertisement to begin. 5 minutes later, the little white dragon's voice sounded again, and it said, The advertisement is over. May I ask if you wish to visit the Azure Dragonheart essence? Yes. And Lin was on the brink of death. The little white dragon twisted its seductive body. If you confirm, please rub the number 1 Dragon Ball. If you deny, please rub the number 2 Dragon Ball. Return to the previous level and rub the number 3 Dragon Ball. Su Xiaolan hurriedly rushed over to rub the number 2 Dragon Ball. Hurry up. And Lin had an eager expression on his face. The little white dragon nodded. The Azure Dragon Heart essence you've chosen is the best service on the Dragon Origin Star. If you pay 1,000,000 more Spirit Stones, you'll receive a treasure-level Infernal Dragon Trial. Would you like that? Unlin, the little white dragon. If you do, please rub the number 1 ball. If you don't, please rub the number 2 ball. Su Xiaolan took a deep breath before rubbing the number 2 ball. The little white dragon continued. You can choose not to. Then, if you add another 500,000 Spirit Stones, you will receive an 8th grade sexual enhancement immortal pill made by the Blood Dragon Maiden. Would you like it? The little white dragon continued. Is this going to end or not? And Lin wailed with saliva dripping from the corners of his mouth. The little white dragon. If you do, please rub the number 1 ball. If you don't, Su Xiaolan's heart was burning with anxiety as she rubbed the number 2 ball. The little white dragon. Please rub the number 6 ball. The air suddenly fell silent. Sorry, there was an error. Please reactivate the dragon-seeking navigation system. The little white dragon self-destructed with a bang. The white dragon ball reappeared on the platform. As if nothing had happened, Su Xiaolan's eyes widened, and she was rooted to the spot. PFFF. And Lin spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed to the ground, paralyzed. Senior and Lin. Fellow Taoist and Lin. Papa. Daddy boo-hoo. I'm sorry, and Lin. Su Xiaolan and the dragons pounced on Lin. The scene was tragic. Bai Shui and the other dragons had never tried normal service before, so they had no idea that it was such a scam. However, in order to stabilize Lin and Su Xiaolan's emotions, Bai Shui still volunteered to be the operator. The dragon pearl exploded and the little white dragon appeared. Welcome to the dragon-seeking navigation. I'm your favorite customer service, Xiao Bai Bai. What can I do for you? For normal service, please rub the number 1 bead. Do you want to revive the male dragon's glory like me? Do you want to have fun every night like me? Great, I'm a trash dragon. Equipment recycling. Another 1,000,000 Spirit Stones and I can get a treasure-grade Infernal Dragon Trial. Add another 500,000 Spirit Stones, add another 2,000,000 Spirit Stones, and you'll be promoted to an annual membership, and you'll be exempted from advertisements. Half an hour later, the little white dragon danced in the sky and sang. La 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 la. I'm the adorable Xiao Bai Bai. I'm here even when the sky is raining. I eat well and run fast. Everyone listen expressionlessly. Ding dong. Congratulations. You've received the right to view the Azure Dragon Heart Essence. The little white dragon chuckled. Su Xiaolan heaved a sigh of relief. The retarded dragon service had finally come to an end. Rumble. The gate deep within the palace began to open. Tears welled up in Bai Shui's eyes. The little white dragon suddenly said, You can view the Azure Dragon Heart Essence now. Add another 100,000 Spirit Stones, and you'll be provided with all types of spirit fruits and drinks. Would you like them? Yes, please rub the number 1 bead. Her fair, jade-like palm was imbued with boundless dragon might as it slapped little white dragon's face, flattening and sinking its face before it exploded. Pissa! Bam! The little white dragon exploded from Su Xiaolan's slap. All of the dragons were dumbstruck. For some reason, they felt a sense of elation. The 2 little azure dragons placed Lin on the black brick before using the black brick as a stretcher. They followed Bai Shui and the others through one gate after another before heading deeper into the palace. After passing through the final gate, which was glowing with azure light like flowing water, a new scene appeared before their eyes. Su Xiaolan could sense the true dragon bloodline within her body throbbing. This was an extreme yearning for something, as if she would be able to possess the entire world if she could possess it. Azure essential power flowed through the air like a river. This was the essential power of truth. At the very center of the river, there was a coiled-up azure dragon with its eyes closed as it snored. Azure light erupted from the center of its coiled-up body. This was essential power that was extremely rich to the extreme. Through the essential power, one could vaguely see an azure object in the shape of an octagonalized flower. It was constantly releasing the purest power, and it fluctuated as if it were the beating of a heart. Regardless of whether it was Holy Jean Kuan-gu, Su Xiaolan, or Bai Shui, All of them were struck by the urge to submit to that object, as if it were the truth of this world and the only thing that would last forever. Su Xiaolan couldn't help but want to approach it. However, there were actually layers of terrifying enchantment barriers around the Azure Dragon, all of which were above the Dao integration stage, and they struck her with a sense of extreme peril. Papa, look, that's the Azure Dragon Heart essence that you've always wanted to see. The two little Azure Dragons pushed Enlin, who was lying on the black brick. Enlin, who was on the brink of death, abruptly sat up with a startled expression. He stared at the Azure Dragon Heart essence with a scorching gaze, and the throbbing in his sea of vital energy became more and more intense. The little black dragon raised its head and stared blankly at the Azure Dragon Heart essence. An invisible power slowly passed through the sea of vital energy and flowed into the little black dragon's body. Welcome, friends of the Azure Dragon Tribe. Enlin, Su Xiaolan, thank you for your contributions to the Azure Dragon Tribe. Also, congratulations to Ms. Su Xiaolan on becoming the guardian deity of our Azure Dragon Tribe. A benevolent yet authoritative voice sounded. The Azure Dragon, with the Azure Dragon Heart essence wrapped around its body, opened its pure golden eyes. Its eyes were extremely beautiful, pure, and not blinding, giving onlookers a sense of boundless warmth and happiness. Su Xiaolan and Enlin were both stunned by this pair of enchanting eyes. Enlin detected its aura and was surprised to find that it was a god of creation stage mighty figure. It looked more like one of the four holy beasts, the Azure Dragon, than the little black dragon in his sea of vital energy. Su Xiaolan pays her respects to the clear origin dragon. Su Xiaolan extended a respectful salute. Enlin pays his respects to Ms. Clear Origin Dragon. Enlin also extended a salute. The other party's attitude was very friendly, so they had to be polite as well. Even though Enlin and Su Xiaolan were still angry at that retarded customer service, it had nothing to do with the Clear Origin Dragon, so they couldn't say anything. A friendly smile appeared on the Clear Origin Dragon's face. The fact that you were able to pass the test of the dragon-seeking navigation system I designed proves that you really do have the right to visit this place. Feel free to look at the Azure Dragon Heart essence through the spell formation. Enlin and Su Xiaolan's veins suddenly bulged. Chapter 1894. Azure Dragon Heart Essence. My A*S. He really wanted to beat the crap out of this dragon. What kind of brain did this seemingly intelligent dragon have to come up with such a retarded system? Su Xiaolan and Enlin's breathing accelerated as they desperately repressed their rage. Sigh, I'm so angry. I really want to beat him up. The Azure Dragon Heart essence is the source of the Azure Dragon Tribe's fortune, the source of Dao, the symbol of power, and the embodiment of the one and only eternal holy birth. It is the most important treasure of the Azure Dragon Tribe. The Clear Origin Dragon was clearly refining the Azure Dragon Heart essence, but he still provided a friendly explanation. It's exactly because the Azure Dragon Heart essence has become an ownerless treasure that the ancient tribe has set their sights on it. They are extremely powerful, and they are taking advantage of the fact that our Azure Dragon Holy Birth is incomplete to launch an all-out attack on the Azure Dragon Star system. Our Azure Dragon Tribe is extremely powerful, but there are too few of us. We won't be able to last long in a war of attrition, and we are also lacking in top-tier combat prowess. After all, the ancient tribe has 3 extreme Dao beast monarchs. It's exactly because of this that the situation on the battlefield is quite bleak. The Clear Origin Dragon heaved a resigned sigh as he spoke. Patriarch Azure Dragon has already passed away, and I am the most likely candidate to inherit his holy birth. If I can receive the acknowledgement of the Azure Dragon Heart essence and successfully refine it before the ancient tribe invades the Dragon Origin Star, then I will be able to turn the tables. Enlin knew that the Clear Origin Dragon was speaking to Su Xiaolan. Su Xiaolan was now the guardian deity of the Azure Dragon Tribe, so she was naturally aware of the current situation of the Azure Dragon Tribe. With Master Clear Origin Dragon here, our Azure Dragon Tribe has no reason to fear the ancient tribe. Gu immediately buttered up the clear origin dragon. A warm smile appeared on the clear origin dragon's face as he looked up into the sky with the azure dragon heart essence. Who will be the pinnacle of the azure dragon tribe? I will stand proudly in the vault of heaven and control the universe in my palm. Master Clear Origin Dragon will definitely succeed. He will lead our tribe to glory. All of the other true dragons chimed in with excitement. And Lin's heart also jolted upon hearing this. This Clear Origin Dragon was quite a character to be reckoned with. In the vast and boundless galaxy, the four hidden saints were very famous, and their status was extremely high. However, among the four hidden sages, the Azure Dragon clan suffered the most, losing an ancestor. The other three Saint Beasts were either injured or in hiding, so they could still be considered a deterrent. Only the Azure Dragon race was being bullied. However, perhaps the Azure Dragon tribe was going to rise again if the Clear Origin Dragon could refine the Azure Dragon Heart Essence. And Lin looked at the Azure Dragon Heart Essence with interest. This was the most precious treasure of the Azure Dragon tribe. Just the aura alone was very alluring, and Lin sensed the destiny and power of the entire race, as well as the Tao of the Azure Dragon. Not only was it eternal, but it was also the only one. It was like flowing water, endless and boundless. It was also like the beating of a heart, producing rhythmic fluctuations. It was indeed a good thing. It was no wonder that the ancient desolate race had mobilized their entire race to fight against the Azure Dragon race. This was an extremely valuable treasure, even to a god of creation. At the very least, it was more badass than any of the treasures Lin had ever seen. It had already transcended beyond the divine rank. And Lin then turned to Su Xiaolan. Su Xiaolan was looking at the Azure Dragon Heart Essence with a calm expression, and her eyes were particularly bright, as if she were looking at some exquisitely beautiful scenery. This trip would most likely be very beneficial to her Tao. With this in mind, a doting smile appeared on Lin's face. Setting aside the little black dragon, just the fact that Su Xiaolan was able to reap some benefits made this trip worth it. But all of a sudden, he was stunned again. Wait, how did this trip become Su Xiaolan's opportunity again? He had endured the pain of childbirth, but Su Xiaolan was able to progress by leaps and bounds? And Lin was suddenly struck by the urge to throw up a mouthful of blood. And Lin turned to the little black dragon again, only to discover that the little black dragon was lazing in his sea of vital energy. Instead, it was happily absorbing the energy within the Azure Dragon Heart Essence, and the flow of this energy was even shielded from the Clear Origin Dragon's senses. Is there an end to this? Is there an end to this? Why aren't you getting the F***CK out here? You haven't even paid me rent, yet you're using my sea of vital energy as your home. What kind of unreasonable behavior is this? What kind of law is this? And Lin became more and more enraged as he thought about this, and he turned to his system in search of a way to become more powerful. I can't go on like this. If this goes on, how can I maintain my authority? High rank, war, god mystic technique, and cultivation base at the return to Void Pinnacle stage were still not enough to satisfy Lin. And Lin looked at his system to find the cultivation base tab. Tao integration initial stage. Condition: bite a piece of flesh from a paramount heavenly god. And Lin was struck by a sense of frustration every time he looked at this condition. Was he born in the year of the dog? Why did he have to bite a piece of flesh from a paramount heavenly god? This mission wasn't actually that depressing. On the contrary, and Lin felt like it was quite simple. After all, he was no longer an ordinary return to void trash. He had attained the phenomenal success stage of his body of the war god and wielded 7 heavenly gods, as well as a high-rank war god mystic technique. Normal heavenly gods were no longer able to do anything to him. Paramount heavenly gods were indeed powerful, but he felt like he could still bite a piece of flesh from one of them. However, he couldn't count on increasing his cultivation base for now. He turned his attention to the other sections of his system. He had already perfected all of the 5 elemental wind and lightning cultivation methods, and only the yin and yang cultivation methods had yet to be perfected. However, there were no missions either. The only one that had a mission was the spell technique below. Super Divine Might Technique. Condition: beat a god of creation stage, living being to the point of complete submission. In the past, he had scoffed at this mission and felt like it was impossible to complete. Beat a god of creation into the point of complete submission? It would already be a miracle if the god of creation didn't slap him to death. But now, there was hope for it to work. The gods of creation of the Tai Chu continent were too powerful, but the gods of creation of the realm of stars were a little weaker. Apparently, the ancient tribe had 3 extreme Tao beast monarchs, and they ruled over the entire realm of stars. It looked like there was a chance for him to go and meet them. An expectant smile appeared on Lin's face as he thought about this. Perhaps he would be able to have a hearty battle. Just as Lin was fantasizing about this, a thump suddenly sounded in his sea of vital energy. The little black dragon opened its golden eyes, and its body inexplicably grew a size. Howl, 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 the little black dragon yelled. Lin was quite perplexed as to what it was trying to do. However, the clear origin dragon's body shuddered violently as he stared at the octagonal ice flower with shock and horror on his face. No, how could this be? Why has my connection with the Azure Dragon Heart essence suddenly weakened? That's impossible. Our connection is clearly getting closer and closer, and it has already acknowledged me. So why is it suddenly ignoring me now? He was completely perplexed, and his body began to writhe in anxiety. What's going on? What's going on? The clear origin dragon writhed incessantly, and his previous pride and calmness had completely disappeared. The weakening of the connection meant that the Azure Dragon Heart essence had rejected him and had made a better choice. As such, the chances of him successfully refining the Azure Dragon Heart essence would be extremely slim. It could even be said that the refinement had already failed. No, I won't allow this to happen. World Dragon Dao, I activate. The clear origin dragon roared as his beautiful eyes suddenly became chaotic. He then seemed to have detected something, and he abruptly turned toward Lin. Chapter 1895. Lin's heart jolted with shock. This was the gaze of a powerful being, and he was struck by a sense of pressure. It's you, the clear origin dragon roared at Lin. No, it's not me. Lin hurriedly shook his head. Su Xiaolan leaped toward Lin before drawing her sword and roaring at the Azure Dragon. Why are you yelling at me, Lin? Boom. The clear origin dragon's god of creation stage might crash down upon Lin and Su Xiaolan, and his voice was like a thunderclap. The power of the Azure Dragon Heart essence has already flowed into your body, and you're still trying to deny it? All of the dragon's expressions shifted upon hearing this. No wonder Lin wanted to see the Azure Dragon Heart essence. Was he trying to steal the power of the Azure Dragon Heart essence? Lin was a spy sent by the enemy to foil the clear origin dragon's plan to become a sage in order to steal the Azure Dragon Heart essence from the clear origin dragon. The more they thought about it, the more astonished all of the dragon tribe super mighty figures were. Lin raised his hands high into the air with an innocent expression. I really don't know whether the Azure Dragon Heart essence has flowed into my body or not. Could it be that it likes me and voluntarily enter my arms? Is that wrong? How? The clear origin dragon roared with rage. You still dare to deny it? Lin, let me ask you, have you seen me unleash any spell technique since I came here? The clear origin dragon fell silent. Lin continued. Is the power of the Azure Dragon Heart essence still flowing into my body? Are there any energy fluctuations coming from my body? The clear origin dragon opened his mouth before closing it again. The power of the Azure Dragon Heart essence was still flowing into Lin's body, but Lin really wasn't moving. There can only be one truth. Lin pointed at the clear origin dragon's octagonal ice flower. All of this was done by the Azure Dragon Heart essence. All of the true dragons were astonished. The clear origin dragon was perplexed. Was this the fault of the Azure Dragon Heart essence? Suddenly, they felt a little sad. It was one thing for the dragon origin star to acknowledge a half-dragon female as its guardian deity. Now, the paramount treasure of the Azure Dragon tribe, the Azure Dragon Heart essence, was offering itself to a human? Oh my God, what was wrong with this world? Did it have to be so ridiculous? The clear origin dragon was a little dumbstruck. However, as it sensed that its connection with the Azure Dragon Heart essence was becoming weaker and weaker, it roared at Enlin again. Piss off, Enlin. You're about to ruin my plan to become a saint. You can't stay here any longer. Enlin's face darkened. What are you yelling about? Once you lose your manners. Rumble. The green ripples instantly spread out for thousands of miles. An even more terrifying pressure enveloped the surrounding area. The clear origin dragon completely unleashed his might, and heaven and earth trembled with the rage of a divine dragon of creation. Regardless of whether it was Kuan Gu, Shengjin, Bai Shui, or Qiyu, all of them were struck by a sense of asphyxiation. And Lin still stood on the spot with a calm expression as he looked at the clear origin dragon. Su Xiaolan's brows furrowed slightly, but she didn't seem to be affected by this. Very good. To think that you're able to withstand my dragon might. The clear origin dragon's expression darkened. But if you don't piss off, then don't blame me for being merciless. So what if they were gods of creation? It wasn't like he hadn't defeated them before. This was the dragon origin star, which was his home turf. He wouldn't be afraid even if two god of creation stage super mighty figures showed up. Don't bully my daddy. Stop. The two little azure dragons appeared beside Enlin and scolded in a loud voice. The male azure dragon yelled, "The Azure Dragon Heart essence has acknowledged Daddy, so why don't we let Daddy become a holy birth instead?" The female azure dragon nodded incessantly. That's right, that's right. The Azure Dragon Heart essence has already forced itself on Father, and it's filled with love. It's a match made in heaven with Father. Isn't this an easy problem to resolve? The clear origin dragon became even more enraged upon hearing this. F*CK off. Have you gone F*King stupid? Why would you acknowledge a human as your daddy? You have to realize that your daddy died after giving birth to you. His thunderous roar was imbued with a domineering dragon might, and the surrounding walls instantly crumbled. However, the two little azure dragons chose to remain by Lin's side and didn't budge an inch. The essential power of the Azure Dragon Heart essence suddenly shuddered violently. The clear origin dragon's expression shifted drastically as he sensed that his connection with Enlin and Su Xiaolan had plummeted, and he opened his mouth to unleash a breath. Roar! F*CK off. The Azure Dragon's breath swept forth like a surging river, turning everything in its wake azure. The clear origin dragon's essential power was imbued within the dragon's breath, and it was not something that a Dao integration stage powerful being could defend against. Even the two little azure dragons were struck by the attack, and their expressions shifted drastically. They didn't think that the clear origin dragon would suddenly turn on them and unleash his essential power from the get-go. Rumble, the dragon's breath was like a surging azure river, destroying everything in its path. Papa, Mommy, the two spoiled little azure dragons were scared sh**less, and they instantly began to wail for their parents. Right at this critical moment, whoosh, a streak of black light suddenly appeared. The extreme sharpness of the blade tore the clear origin dragon's breath in half. The two halves of energy pierced through the entire building with unstoppable force before extending into the boundless distance. The little azure dragons opened their eyes to discover that there was a little black dragon standing in front of them. This figure wasn't very tall, but it was extremely reliable and was able to slice the clear origin dragon's attack in half with its tail. The two little azure dragons could sense the aura of the little black dragon, and their eyes widened as they opened their mouths to speak in a trembling voice. Daddy, Daddy, it really is you. The dragon's breath dispersed. A little black dragon appeared in front of the two little azure dragons, and it stared at the gargantuan azure dragon with its golden eyes as it spoke in a husky voice imbued with boundless might. A mighty god of creation stage dragon actually dared to attack two Dao integration stage children? How shameless. The clear origin dragon's expression shifted drastically upon seeing the little black dragon's appearance. How could it be you? Kuan Gu, Bai Shui, and the others were completely dumbstruck upon seeing the little black dragon's appearance. Sheng Jin's expression faltered. Impossible. Didn't you die? How did you suddenly come back to life? There's no mistaking it. Even though there's a slight difference in appearance, the energy fluctuations and the paramount aura emanating from his body can't fool me. Bai Shui murmured to herself with a dazed expression. Tears welled up in Qi Yu's eyes, and he collapsed to the ground with a reverent expression. Qi Yu welcomes the return of Patriarch Azure Dragon. Boom, boom, boom. Sheng Jin, Bai Shui, and Kuan Gu also knelt to the ground as their voices erupted throughout heaven and earth. Welcome back, Patriarch Azure Dragon. Welcome back, Patriarch Azure Dragon. Chapter 1896. The voices of the true dragons reverberated throughout heaven and earth. The collective voices of all the true dragons spread through the entire dragon origin star at an incredible speed with the assistance of a special power. The consciousness of the planet was also jumping with joy. It was also welcoming its master. Welcome back, Patriarch Azure Dragon. Almost all of the dragon tribe living beings looked up into the sky. No one knew where the voices were coming from. No one could verify the authenticity of this information. But for some reason, the millions of beings of the Azure Dragon clan all felt joy in their hearts. Colorful mist as the sky, lightning as the sea, and the Dragon Ball as the sun. The pair of dull eyes of the Azure Dragon building that soared up from the sea of lightning slowly gained vigor, looking very lively. It looked like it could soar into the 9 heavens at any moment. Within the building, the little black dragon put his hands on his hips and sneered. Brother Ching'en, your papa is back. Daddy, Daddy. The 2 little azure dragons pounced toward the little black dragon with tears in their eyes. They finally understood why they felt a bloodline connection with Enlin. It turned out that their father was hiding in Enlin's body. The reunion between father and son was extremely touching. Slap! Boom! The 2 little azure dragons were slapped flying by the little black dragon. Piss off. Can't you see I'm facing off against the clear origin dragon? What the F*** are you talking about? The little black dragon let loose a torrent of abuse before turning his attention back to the clear origin dragon. The male azure dragon clasped his hands over his face as he stared blankly at the little black dragon in the distance. The female azure dragon was in an even worse state. She had just been moved to tears, and now she was being slapped into tears again. The reunion between father and daughter was completely different from what she had imagined. Enlin and Su Xiaolan were also a little dumbstruck. Were these 2 little azure dragons really the little black dragon's biological children? No. Holy F***. Even their colors were different. Enlin's heart jolted with shock. From a different perspective, the clear origin dragon looked more like the father of the 2 little azure dragons. The little black dragon looked at the clear origin dragon with a cold smile. You didn't think that I would still be alive, did you? The clear origin dragon's expression darkened. I really didn't expect this. The little black dragon's claws twined with a pitch-black divine light. Then, are you prepared to meet your death? Through a special reincarnation method, you've reformed your divine soul and physical body, but you're still too young. Your strength hasn't stabilized yet, not to mention that you've even lost the most important holy seed. The clear origin dragon stared at the little black dragon before making a grabbing motion, upon which the octagonal ice flower tremored slightly before landing in his hand. Also, don't forget that the Azure Dragon Heart Essence is in my hands. Even if it refuses to acknowledge me, I can still forcibly draw upon its power. Kuan Gu and the other dragons were dumbstruck again. Wait, Big Boss Azure Dragon, Big Boss Clear Origin Dragon, what are you doing? Boss Azure Dragon has returned. Shouldn't we be celebrating? Why do all of you look like you're at daggers drawn? The clear origin dragon fell silent upon hearing this. The little black dragon chortled with glee. The 4 of us holy beasts were severely wounded and sealed away by Pangu. Pangu had no intention of taking our lives, but you Never would I have thought that my most trusted brother would stab me in the back when I was at my weakest and try to kill me, the clear origin dragon chuckled. I can no longer progress in my Tao. Only the holy birth will allow me to see the world beyond. In order to progress further in my Tao, I'm willing to give up everything. Ha! You're willing to give up everything in order to pursue your Tao. You truly have fulfilled the words you said back then. After the little black dragon smiled, a deep sorrow surged in her eyes. But I also said that I hate betrayal the most. Anyone who betrays me must die. The clear origin dragon nodded before waving a hand through the air, upon which the azure dragon heart essence suddenly expanded into an azure ball of light. Come with me to the azure dragon realm. I'm afraid that the dragon origin star won't be able to withstand the shockwaves from our battle. All right. The two streaks of light flew into the azure ball of light without any hesitation. An azure light erupted forth from the ball of light, which was countless times more dazzling than the sun. However, it quickly dimmed after a short while. When the light completely disappeared, the azure dragon heart essence had disappeared along with the little black dragon and the clear origin dragon. Silence returned to the building. Su Xiaolan and Enlin also fell silent. The two little azure dragons also fell silent. Kuan-gu, Sheng-jin, Bai Shui, and Qiyu also fell silent. Patriarch Azure Dragon was killed by the clear origin dragon. An incredulous expression appeared on Bai Shui's face. No, Big Boss Qin Yuan has always been a conscientious person. He has risked his life many times for the sake of the Azure Dragon tribe. So how could he be Patriarch Azure Dragon's killer? Tears welled up in Sheng Jin's eyes. The clear origin dragon had always been his idol, and he was unable to accept this. Enlin was speechless. The clear origin dragon just revealed that he's a werewolf, and you still don't want to believe him? Brother, don't worship him like that. Sheng Jin was completely speechless upon hearing this, and he collapsed to the ground with a dejected expression. The two little azure dragons were extremely concerned. What do we do? What if Dad can't defeat him? The female azure dragon asked. Don't worry, Dad was already so powerful when he slapped us just then, so he definitely won't be a problem. The male azure dragon consoled. The female azure dragon. If we hadn't mentioned this, we would still be siblings. I didn't think that the clear origin dragon would be such a dragon. Kuan-gu clenched his claws with grief and indignation on his face. He was the pride and pillar of the Azure Dragon tribe. Even when all living beings thought that Patriarch Azure Dragon had fallen, he was still the hope of the Azure Dragon tribe's revival. However, what none of the dragons thought was that the clear origin dragon was the culprit behind Patriarch Azure Dragon's death. In any case, we should be happy that Patriarch Azure Dragon is back, shouldn't we? Bai Shui wiped the tears from her eyes and forced a smile onto her face. After all, his body and consciousness have only been reforged not too long ago. If he can't defeat the clear origin dragon, Kuan-gu was a little concerned. Then we'll avenge Patriarch Azure Dragon with our lives. Qiyu spoke in a firm voice. That's right. The clear origin dragon must die regardless of the outcome. Either he dies today or we die. There's no other choice, Bai Shui chimed in. The clear origin dragon was very important to the Azure Dragon tribe, and he had made many great contributions to the Azure Dragon tribe, so he was very much loved and revered by the Azure Dragon tribe. However, he had made a fatal mistake, which was to attempt to kill Patriarch Azure Dragon. Regardless of whether he succeeded or not, this was an unforgivable crime. All right, I'll stake my life on this. Kuan-gu gritted his teeth. All of the other dragon tribe super mighty figures chimed in, and Lin turned to all of the true dragons with a hint of surprise in his eyes. It looked like the little black dragon really did hold an unshakable position in their hearts. He then turned to look at the empty space in front of him. Now, all that remained was to be seen. Chapter 1897. There was another world within the Azure Dragon Heart essence. Patriarch Azure Dragon and the clear origin dragon were most likely battling in that world. Unfortunately, Enlin was unable to detect the coordinates of the Azure Dragon realm, so he couldn't even spectate. They could only stand on the spot and wait for the final result. And Lin, you had a stomachache because that little black patriarch azure dragon was in your stomach? Su Xiaolan asked. It was in my sea of vital energy, not my stomach, and Lin corrected. He wanted to come out, but couldn't, which was why I felt like I was experiencing dystocia. After that, he was able to come out with the power of the Azure Dragon Heart essence, which saved me a lot of pain. Your sea of vital energy. You really can store anything. I had thought that it would only be able to store energy and materials, but who would have thought that even Patriarch Azure Dragon's sea of vital energy could be stored in it? And Lin also wore a disconsolate expression on his face. When the Azure Dragon was still an egg, it was still a fake thing. But when the egg hatched, it became a real Azure Dragon. I'm also in despair. Hatched egg? The male Azure Dragon exclaimed. A real Azure Dragon? The female Azure Dragon blinked with a thoughtful expression, just as Lin was wondering what they were thinking. The two little Azure Dragons pounced toward him. The male Azure Dragon. Grandpa. The female Azure Dragon. Grandpa. 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 And Lin. Su Xiaolan couldn't help but burst into laughter. Grandma. Grandma. The two little Azure Dragons then yelled at Su Xiaolan in an affectionate manner. Su Xiaolan couldn't laugh anymore. Were these two little Azure Dragons retarded? Could it be that they hadn't been taught to read properly after they were born? How'd I become a grandpa? I have nothing to do with your father. And Lin flared up with rage. How could you not have anything to do with him? Grandpa made an egg and gave birth to Daddy. The male Azure Dragon said, in our Azure Dragon clan, whoever lays the egg will be the parent of that egg. The female Azure Dragon nodded incessantly. Daddy's daddy is called Grandpa. Daddy's mommy is called Grandma. And Lin was in despair. He couldn't be bothered to argue with the other party. Anyway, he wouldn't lose out as a grandfather. He wondered what Ancestor Green Dragon would think if he knew that his child called him Lin Grandpa. Wasn't this a joyous occasion? However, it suddenly had such an awesome father, so it wasn't a loss. Just as Lin was letting his imagination run wild, Su Xiaolan, who was at the side, had already begun to organize the true dragons to set up a large-scale killing formation nearby. They had to prepare for the worst-case scenario. If the Clear Origin Dragon won, then they could only try to kill the Clear Origin Dragon or be killed by him. And Lin promised to help them, which boosted the confidence of Bai Shui and the other dragons. The two little Azure Dragons called him Grandpa even more passionately. Time passed slowly. One day later, the killing formation set up by Su Xiaolan, Kuan-Gu, Sheng-Jin, the two little Azure Dragons, as well as the two guardian deities, Qi-Yu and Bai Shui, had already been successfully set up. Many divine tools and divine rank items have been used to set up this killing formation, and even the most powerful treasures of the guardian deities have been set up. In terms of short-term power, it could even severely wound a god of creation. If worse comes to worst, I'll crush the guardian deity's token and draw upon the power of the Dragon Origin Star, as well as the power of the Azure Dragon Tribe living beings within my body. Bai Shui's voice was filled with determination. Su Xiaolan's expression also stirred upon hearing this. After becoming a guardian deity, one would receive a token blessed by the Dragon Origin Star. This was a one-time consumable, and if the guardian deity crushed the token, they would be able to borrow the power of the Dragon Origin Star, as well as the Azure Dragon Tribe living beings for a short period of time. That way, Qi-Yu and Bai Shui would also be able to obtain the power of a god of creation for a short period of time. This was the foundation of the Azure Dragon Tribe. Of course, Su Xiaolan was also a guardian deity now, so she could also crush the token to obtain the power of a god of creation. She felt like she was even more bad *SS than Qi-Yu and Bai Shui. So the power she would obtain after crushing the token would most likely be more powerful than the average god of creation. 3 god of creation stage beings should be enough to kill the Clear Origin Dragon, right? If that didn't work out, then there was still Lin. Time flew by. Another day passed by. There was still no conclusion to the battle. Bai Shui and Qi-Yu used the power of the planet as guardian deities to inform all of the Dao integration stage true dragons of the Azure Dragon Tribe of the return of Patriarch Azure Dragon. as well as the clear origin dragon's betrayal and murder. They had to keep this a secret so that their enemies wouldn't learn of this. As for the Tao integration stage true dragons, all of them had been through countless trials and tribulations, so they wouldn't do anything that would betray the Azure Dragon tribe. Otherwise, not only would their Tao hearts be damaged, even their Dragon tribe bloodlines would crumble, and they would lose all of their cultivation bases. After all, not all true dragons were as freakish as the clear origin dragon. This created a massive stir among the higher-ups of the Azure Dragon tribe. All of a sudden, golden lightning roared in the sky, gales swept through the clouds, crimson flames pierced through the sky, and sword intent rang through the air. A series of powerful Tao integration stage true dragons rushed toward Enlin and the others. Aside from those who couldn't leave and had to defend the battlefront, 20 Tao integration stage true dragons had arrived in less than a day. All of them had come to reinforce Patriarch Azure Dragon. Enlin couldn't help but sigh with emotion at the sight of this spectacular lineup. The little black dragon's status in the Azure Dragon tribe could only be described as paramount. Even if he lost his holy birth, he was still the only god of the Azure Dragon tribe, and he would be willing to sacrifice his entire tribe for him. The Azure Dragon tribe army spread out around the Sea of Lightning, ready to strike. A grave atmosphere enshrouded the entire Dragon Origin star like a dark cloud. This was a battle that would decide the fate of the entire tribe, and there were almost no powerful beings who were willing to back down. Bai Shui looked around with a grave expression. This is an unprecedented battle for the holy Tao in the Azure Dragon tribe. The outcome of this battle will determine who will become the holy birth of the Azure Dragon tribe. I hope the victor is Patriarch Azure Dragon. If not, our Azure Dragon tribe will be in danger of extinction. If the Clear Origin Dragon won, then even if they were able to kill the Clear Origin Dragon, their entire tribe would still be in danger of extinction. Without a god of creation stage dragon among their ranks, the Azure Dragon tribe would definitely become a hot commodity for all of the major powers. They could easily be devoured. Hence, the Azure Dragon tribe's decision to allow the victor to continue to rule over the tribe was the wisest decision. At the very least, it would prevent the entire tribe from being wiped out. Killing the Clear Origin Dragon was a very foolish decision, but almost all of the powerful beings had chosen this foolish course of action. Another day passed by. 3 days and 3 nights had passed since the two mighty figures entered the Azure Dragon realm to battle. Enlin was munching on an immortal fruit when he suddenly raised his head and narrowed his eyes. "It's here." Kacha, a gargantuan azure rift extended from the heavens into the Sea of Lightning. Howl! A dragon's roar shook heaven and earth. A gargantuan figure tore through the rift and appeared between heaven and earth. Chapter 1898. A gargantuan figure emerged from the rift that connected heaven and earth. This was an azure dragon that was so gargantuan that it struck one with a sense of asphyxiation. Its eyes were like 2 suns that scorched everything between heaven and earth, and its body was over 1,000,000 feet in length. Each and every swipe of its claws was powerful enough to shatter mountains and split seas, and every breath it took swept through heaven and earth. All of the Tao integration stage true dragons were struck by an instinctive sense of bloodline might at the sight of the Azure Dragon, and their bodies recoiled involuntarily. It was as if the Azure Dragon before them was their paramount god, and all they could do was submit to it. This is... Bai Shui's body swayed slightly, and her features turned extremely pale. Tears welled up in Chiyu's eyes as he gritted his teeth. How could it be the Clear Origin Dragon? Why? That's right, the gargantuan being before them was riddled with countless wounds, and its aura was extremely feeble, but it was undoubtedly the traitor of the Azure Dragon tribe who had murdered Patriarch Azure Dragon, the Clear Origin Dragon. All of the true dragons wore expressions of grief and indignation as they prepared to unleash their killing formation. However, the Clear Origin Dragon roared with rage. "Azure Dragon, I've already sworn eternal loyalty to the Azure Dragon tribe, and I've already surrendered to you. Why do you still insist on killing me?" a black figure flew out from the rift. Compared to the clear origin dragon, it was as insignificant as an ant. However, its aura was aloof and supreme. Its might made the true dragons unable to even think of resisting it. It was so profound and vast, so bright and grand, and it even faintly carried a transcendent aura. It was as if it could trample the entire world under its feet with just a gentle press. He. Oaths made by gods of creation are the most untrustworthy things, so I won't believe your surrender. I hate betrayal the most. Even if you're my best friend, I'm going to kill you today. The little black dragon whipped its tail through the air as it shot forth. An expression of shock and horror appeared on the clear origin dragon's face. It was clear that he had been tortured to an extremely sorry state by the little black dragon. If that's the case, then don't blame me for taking you down with me. The clear origin dragon roared, and divine light erupted from his body as essential power surged violently around his body. He opened his mouth, and the dragon energy within a radius of tens of thousands of kilometers surged into his mouth like a vortex before being expelled again. Destroy the dragon realm. The clear origin dragon blasted forth an azure river. From the river, Unlin could even see a vast and boundless world. The great world was ruled by the powerful dragon race, and there were many other races living on it. There were mountains, rivers, oceans, a sun, a moon, and a galaxy. It contained the power of the world's origin, and Lin was shocked. The clear origin dragon was already in a frenzy to the point where he was about to hurl out his entire world in order to crush the little black dragon to death. He could sense just how terrifying this attack was. The world had transformed into an azure river of unimaginable mass and unimaginable energy. If it crashed into the dragon origin star without any resistance, the dragon origin star would most likely be blasted to smithereens. The little black dragon coldly sneered at the smashing of the entire world, his expression wild and unruly. With just you, do you think you're worthy of taking me down with you? It opened its mouth and spat out dark energy. At first, it was very small, but it quickly grew bigger and bigger, darker and darker. It spread forward in a fan shape, and there were countless white dots flickering in the darkness. The galaxy was endless. The clear origin dragon spat out a world. The little black dragon spat out a boundless starry sky. Boom! Two paramount powers clashed. The entire sky instantly dimmed. The surrounding scenery slowed down, a kind of slowness that seemed to come to a standstill. After what seemed like a very long time, it also seemed like a split second had passed. The boundless starry sky began to engulf the azure river world. A large world crashed into the boundless starry sky, but it was only able to send countless ripples flying through the starry sky. No! The clear origin dragon let loose a cry of shock and horror as the dark starry sky engulfed his body before passing through and encompassing the entire heavens. It was still daytime on the dragon origin star, but in the blink of an eye, the entire sky had been stained inky black by the little black dragon's starry sky, leaving only the boundless galaxy of stars shimmering in the darkness. Tranquil, ethereal, boundless and boundless. This became the atmosphere of this moment. All of the living beings looked on silently at the scenes unfolding before their eyes. The little black dragon's tiny, inky black body seemed to be trying to blend into the starry sky. It was not very eye-catching in the darkness, but all of the true dragons could sense the boundless, dazzling light radiating from its back. As for the extremely powerful clear origin dragon, he had already been engulfed by the starry sky. Azure rain began to fall from the sky. It was as if he were sobbing, and Lin caught the raindrops, and he was struck by a sense of sorrow for some reason. He could sense the clear origin dragon's entire life from the raindrops, as well as his pursuit of Tao. The clear origin dragon was not like Patriarch Azure Dragon, who was blessed by the universe from birth and became an eternal holy birth. He was born as an extremely frail little snake, a little snake that could be crushed to death by any living being. But it was unyielding, it was unwilling, It did not want its life to end in such a mediocre beginning, and no one cared about it. He embarked on a journey to become more powerful by any means necessary. He could do the most despicable things for food. He could risk his life for a spirit plant. He had sold his snake eggs. He had sold his friends. He had sold his family. He had killed his teacher. He had killed himself. He had endured the most terrifying pain in this world. He transformed from a snake to a WIRM, from a WIRM to a dragon, and from a dragon to the Azure Dragon with the paramount bloodline. He had endured countless hardships and tribulations, but he had also encountered countless miraculous encounters. He had witnessed the most dazzling and beautiful scenery, and most importantly, he had learned of the most alluring thing in this world. That was Tao. The meaning of life was Tao. The process of pursuing Tao was the process of pursuing the true meaning of life. He was willing to give up everything for Tao. It had indeed done so. In order to advance further, it had even betrayed its best brother. In the end, he was spurned by the entire dragon tribe, and his reputation was completely tarnished. He died because of his Tao. In the end, he didn't see the highest and farthest scenery, and he couldn't even find his body. Was it a failure? If he had failed, then the entire dragon origin star wouldn't have been covered in azure rain. No, this rain even radiated across the entire azure dragon star system, and then to the surrounding tens of thousands of planets, big and small, as it rained sorrowfully. Gods of creation had already attained the most essential power and possessed a certain level of transcendental power. Now that a god of creation had fallen, even the universe was weeping in grief. Is this the phenomenon that manifests when a god of creation falls? Su Xiaolan stared blankly at the rain falling from the sky, and she was struck by a sense of regret. She could also sense a hint of an essential power. This rain was useful to all super mighty figures at the Tao integration pinnacle stage. Some of them would be more resolute in their Tao hearts. Some of them would be able to peer through the rain to witness the scenes of a god of creation. Some of them would even be able to awaken a brand new Tao. What did Su Xiaolan see? She saw an azure dragon flying into the boundless sky. There was no end in sight. After the azure dragon expended all of its energy, it used its blood as fuel to continue onward. After its blood dried up, it used its bones and body as fuel. After its body was gone, it burned its own soul to continue onward. In the end, it had nothing left to burn. It had nothing left, so it stood at the highest point in the sky, looking down upon the mortal world. No one knew where it was, and no one cared. It looked on silently at the spectacular scenes it had never seen before, and it didn't say anything or do anything. In the end, it gradually disappeared from heaven and earth.